Good evening and welcome to the January 9th meeting of the Glendale City Council, being called to order at 6:08 p.m. May we have roll call, please?
Council members Asatryan,
Here.
Divine, Kasakian,
Here.
Najarian, Mayor Bowman.
Here. And I guess we'll do flag salute first.
Before we do that, if we can just, under the Brown Act, Councilmember Najarian is participating because he's on official business for the Airport Authority.
I'll
So
make
we got
the
a motion
motion.
to approve his participation.
I'll make a motion to approve Councilmember Najarian's participation.
A second.
Okay, and do we need roll call for that?
Yes.
Okay, roll call, please.
Council members Asatryan,
Yes.
Divine, Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Bowman.
Yes. Okay. And for those of you in the audience or watching from home, Councilmember Najarian is on the phone. He'll be participating in the meeting from Hawaii, I think. And Councilmember Devine is at the same meeting, but is not participating tonight. That's why you see three of us here. And I think because there are only three of us, I don't think any of us can get up to go to the bathroom without stopping the meeting because we don't have a quorum. So we're going to try to get through this quickly. Okay. But let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand, put your right hand over your heart, and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And please remain standing briefly for the invocation by our city clerk.
Let us begin by acknowledging that we are standing on the indigenous lands of the Gabrielino Tongva people. As we recently celebrated the dawn of a new year, and as we anticipate the upcoming observance of Dr. King's enduring legacy, let us commit ourselves to the work of building bridges across divides, of amplifying voices that have been silenced, and of fostering environments where equality thrives. In this new year, may we be guided by Dr. King's vision of a world where every individual is judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Let us strive to create communities where diversity is cherished, where barriers to opportunity are dismantled, and where the dignity of every person is honored and respected. Thank you.
Thank you. You may be seated. And next will be the report of the city clerk.
The agenda for January 9th, 2024 regular meeting of the Glendale City Council was posted on January 4th, 2024 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. And what is next?
Next are presentations and appointments, and the first item is the announcement of the regular meetings for the City Council and Housing Authority on January 16th, 2024 have been canceled. The next regular council meeting will be on January 23rd, 2024, and the next Housing Authority meeting will be on February 6th, 2024.
Okay, thank you. And next?
And our next presentation is recognition for Metropolitan Water District's Being Waterwise is 2024 Calendar Art Contest cover winner.
Okay, thank you. So we have some guests here today because we're giving 2 commendations to students who have won a competition. And I will read a little summary of that competition, and then we'll be able to show the images that we're talking about. But each year, Glendale Water and Power, in partnership with the Metropolitan Water District, hosts a water conservation art contest for K through 12 grade students. The contest requires participants to create artwork that portrays the theme, "Being Water Wise is," ... So it's describing being water wise, and to include a short message on their artwork. The winning entries are featured in the Metropolitan Water District's 2024 calendar, and there are other prizes available as well. A total of 13 entries were selected by Glendale Water and Power and submitted to the Metropolitan Water District for a final round of regional competition. We are thrilled to announce that Sophia Doe, a 4th grade Glendale student from Monte Vista Elementary School, has been selected to be featured on the cover of the MWD's 2024 art calendar. And here's the image. I have the calendar in my hand here. That's what it looks like. And that's a great picture, Sophia. And I'm not surprised that you won. Additionally, Haeyoon Lee, a 6th grade student from Fremont Elementary School, is a finalist whose artwork will be showcased inside the calendar. We are proud to have, and this is Haeyoon's image. We are proud to have their beautiful artwork and important water conservation messages shared for all to see. In 2023, Glendale students created stunning art that showcased their commitment to water conservation, and we are excited to host the contest again in 2024. Thank you to all the participants who submitted their artwork. Congratulations to Sophia and Haeyoon, and to all the other students who took part in the contest. Visit GWP's Winners Art Gallery at glendaleca.gov/art contest to view artwork from our finalists. Well, and let me see if Sophia and maybe her parents want to come up to the podium. Okay, and I will present this commendation to you. Oh, I see you have the picture. That's nice. Okay, let's let the viewing audience see that. Why don't you put it up? No, the other way around. Well, they'll see it that way, and then you want to turn around so the TV audience can see it. Because Sophia, you're on TV right now. Have you ever been on TV before?
No.
No, okay. Well, there's a first time for everything. You're on TV. So anyway, it says, in recognition of your artistic contributions toward the Glendale Water and Power and Metropolitan District's Water Conservation Art Contest, please accept this commendation. Your artwork inspires other young artists to share their story of self-expression, and we're honored to showcase your work for the MWD's 2024 calendar. We commend your talents and encourage you to continue to engage your creativity. We are grateful to have you be part of our Glendale community and wish you continued success. Signed, Mayor Daniel Brotman.
Hey, congratulations.
And I'll come down in a minute. First, I'll say we also have a commendation for Haeyoon Lee, who couldn't make it today, but somebody is picking up her commendation. You are picking up her commendation.
It's a school night. It's okay.
Okay, so I'm going to come down. We're going to take a picture, okay? And my colleagues, if they want to come down too. And for those of you who don't know, Mr. Kasakian is on the board of the Metropolitan Water District. Were you part of the
No,
panel deciding
I
on the
wasn't,
artwork?
but at today's meeting, when you walk into the Metropolitan Water District headquarters, all of the artwork is displayed. I immediately knew which one was the Glendale submission and winner because it was the best one there, obviously. So congratulations, you're an amazing artist.
Okay, let's go down. What? Let's come. Oh, her parents. Okay, and I'll stand over here. You stand there, and we come, and you can hold this like this. Show that you've got this. Okay, come on in. Oh, okay.
There we go.
I'll hold this, okay? Okay. You want to say something? Yes. Okay, wow. Well, let's put this down so we can hear you. In just 1 second, okay? What are you doing? Oh, give her a pin. Okay, so Sophia, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Brotman, the City Council, and Ms. Vars at GWP for my chance to be here today. My name is Sophia, and I'm in 4th grade at Monte Vista Elementary, and my teacher, Ms. Kim, is here tonight to support me as well as my parents. I hope my artwork will remind people how easy it is to save water. I got my inspiration from my garden, which has lots of succulents, or also known as drought-tolerant plants. And it's really exciting to have my artwork on the cover of the calendar, and thank you very much.
Thank you. And you are certainly a very impressive young woman. We're going to follow your career from here on in.
He's
okay?
going to be on this dais one day.
I
That
wouldn't be
presentation
surprised. I
was-
wouldn't be surprised if one day you'll be sitting right here. Okay. Anyway, thank you for coming and for what you've done. Okay. What is next?
Next are consent items, including minutes. The following are routine and may be acted upon by one motion. Any member of council or the audience requesting separate consideration may do so by making such request before a motion is proposed.
Okay, and I would like to pull item 4B for separate discussion. Any others?
I'll move the,
Okay, no
Remainder.
public comments.
No public comment.
Okay, so we have a motion for the balance of the consent calendar. Do we have a second? Councilmember Kasaki?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We can have roll call now.
Yes, council members Asadrian,
yes,
Divine, Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Botman.
Yes. And then would you read 4B into the record, please?
Yes. Four B is Public Works regarding Federal Transit Administration, Section 5310, grant funding for dial-a-ride vehicles and service. One, motion authorizing the city manager or designee to execute agreements and documents related to the FTA Section 5310, Enhanced Mobility for Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities Grant Funding Awards, and for the purchase of 6 replacement dial-a-ride minivans and implementation of the on-demand pilot program for dial-a-ride operations. 2, resolution of appropriation of FTA Section 5310, Enhanced Mobility for Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities Grant Funds, City Measure R Local Return, and Transit Utility Matching Funds for dial-a-ride vehicles and services.
Okay, thank you. And I asked to pull this because I know we're looking at purchasing 6 new dial-a-ride vans, and I was concerned that these are internal combustion engine vehicles and not electric vehicles or hybrids. So I did a little bit of, investigation over all of 24 hours. But I did, I do understand that Los Angeles has already piloted in all-electric, I think what they call it, cutaway, that the term, a cutaway van, that I believe they'll be using for dial-a-ride. And they are ordering many of them. I don't know the number. I was also told that South Pasadena is using an electric vehicle for their dial-a-ride. I don't know if that's it was set off the cuff, so I don't know if it's all electric or hybrid or what the case may be. But I wanted us to, I was concerned because we have a plan that we want to convert our fleet to electric, and investing in, petroleum-based vehicles is not the right direction. But I understand that we have some limitations, and perhaps you could explain what the situation is.
Sure. Good evening, Mayor Brotman and City Council members. The funding is through the Federal Transit Administration, Section 5310, Enhanced Mobility for Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities. And because it's a federal grant, it must meet Buy America, and the vehicle must be Altoona tested. So we are replacing minivans. So the first thing is that there are no electric minivans. They're larger, the cutaways that you mentioned are bigger. They have an actual lift. The minivans have a ramp. So they're a little easier for our clients to board and get in and out. And the minivans have a 4-year useful life. Now, we are also always looking at ways to electrify our fleet. But in this case, we have a couple of issues with ordering the larger electric paratransit vehicle besides the lift issue, is that we're currently designing the electrification for the Beeline facility that includes a parking deck. And so until the parking deck is constructed, we only have space to charge 5 battery electric buses that we will be ordering. And then the actual completion of the parking deck will be 2 to 3 years. So because of the useful life of 4 years, we plan to buy the minivans and then in 4 years apply and receive grant funding for an electric vehicle. So we have limitations
Okay.
in charging.
Okay, so see, the primary limitation is charging, because I believe, LA is going to be using these for dial-a-ride.
Yes, and they're larger vehicles, and they work well, but we have had really good success with our minivans because they're less expensive to operate since the lift is a ramp and doesn't have to have issues with the lift being difficult to deploy. It's not to say that within 3 years or 4 years, there will be an electric minivan available for us to buy.
Mm-hmm.
And if not, then we can decide to buy cutaways.
Okay, so based on that, I will support this. I was initially feeling like I wanted us to go back and relook at this, but your explanation, is convincing. So, but I wanted to have the discussion, and I wanted to make sure that we are always looking for opportunities.
Yes, yes.
And as soon as we are able, that we can convert our dial-a-ride service to all electric.
Yes.
Okay, so with that,
I'll move
I'll
them.
take a motion.
Did you,
Go ahead.
do you have comments?
No,
Oh, okay, I'll move the item.
I'll second.
Okay, motion is second. Roll call, please.
Council members Asadrian,
Yes.
Devine, Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Brotman.
Yes, thank you for that explanation. Okay, what is next?
Next are city council and staff comments.
Okay. Councilmember Satrian, any comments?
Sure, I have a couple. First and foremost, Happy New Year, everyone. There are several follow-up items I wanted to do from items that we've discussed as a council or brought up in comments, but I want to figure out a way where some of these come back to us privately. And City Manager Golanian, I'd look to you to let's figure out in the coming weeks where some of these items maybe can come back as just comments from staff during this portion of the meeting, but I think it would be helpful for the public to know the information that we ask publicly, but then we get privately, whether it's through memos or whatnot. I think along those lines this is something I know that Mayor Brotman has also brought up, but every time I'm crossing Glen Oaks and Brand, there's been instances where there's elderly that are walking. There's not enough time for them to even make it to the midpoint of that intersection, and I know this is something that we've brought up for the last year and a half, and I don't know where we're at with that. And then the second is when we talk about public safety and pedestrian safety, the walk sign turning on or turning green some seconds before the actual main traffic light going in the same direction. I know there's been so many times for me personally that, the person just jumps off the curb and, creates a hazard. And so I think those are the two items I'd like to see something on, if it's possible, when staff has an answer to what the timeline looks like, where we're at with that. The other is the street vendors. I know that some of us have gotten complaints. I'm not looking to agendize this item for the time being, but I would like for there to be some sort of discussion among staff on how we can help mitigate. I recognize that the LA County Health Department is the one that oversees, but if there's opportunities for our code enforcement to coordinate with police in figuring out, if they're blocking the right of way. I also want us to be mindful of the mom and pop shops that may be impacted if someone's setting up. And I'm not talking about the fruit stands, and I'm not talking about those kinds of street vendors. I personally love street food and I enjoy them. I just want to make sure that we're being mindful of our small businesses and mom and pop shops, but also who's setting up what locations. I know that we had previously brought up issues with oil spillage and so forth. So just getting maybe a memo back of here's some ways that we can mitigate, and we can kind of take it from there. And then I'd like to agendize this for us to talk about next week, but I would love for us to take the California Equal Pay Pledge as a city. This is an initiative that's launched by the California Commission on the Status of Women and Girls, the California Partners Projects, California Equal Pay Pledge, and our first partner, Jennifer Newsom. I'm happy to circulate the pledge to my colleagues before the next meeting, just for informational purposes, but like that as a new business item. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Please.
I can provide a brief update for your information, and then we can follow up with more detailed memos. As far as the memos that go to City Council, per your request for information, the City Attorney and I had a brief conversation earlier this evening, and there are a couple of options that we can exercise. I can attach them to my weekly reports that goes to council, so that way you'll be updated, and we may also be able to put these on our city website, and anyone, a member of the public, can access it.
Okay.
The leading pedestrian intervals that you talked about, the green light for pedestrians, as a matter of fact, our Public Works Department has already started adjusting the timing. They have increased it from 3 to 5 seconds, and these are primarily concentrated in the downtown area, the intersections within the downtown area, at 59 locations. We have a listing of them that our Public Works Department is going to use to put a map together so that you can have a visual of where these are being adjusted. And the Glen Oaks Brand Boulevard traffic signal, I sent a note to our traffic engineers and Public Works Department, and they are going to review it and let me know what they find and how we can make it longer for a longer period of time for pedestrians to be able to access. So we'll bring all of those back through memos, and we'll provide the information.
So the 59 locations are already operating at that additional Like, it's
2
5
seconds.
seconds
Right.
versus?
Right.
And then how are the rest being determined? Or have we stopped, so it's going to be just those 59?
Currently, they're concentrating in the downtown area.
Okay.
I'm not certain if all the 59 locations have been completed, but it's in the process. And then once we complete those, then we can expand it to other areas.
Okay. But there is a plan for expansion to
Yes.
other areas?
Yes.
And is that being coordinated with police? Or, you know, whether it's accidents, you know,
Not necessarily,
corners where,
it's just the standard that we had in place for a long time, the 3 seconds. We just increased it to 5 seconds to give it give the pedestrians 2 additional seconds to be able to cross. And the street vendor, it's very timely, actually. We had a conversation again today with our police chief and the city attorney, and we are convening a meeting, and our CDD director convening a meeting to put our arms around this issue, ongoing issue, and come up with some solutions. And you'll receive a memo on that as well.
great start to a new year. Thanks.
Okay, great. Councilmember Kasakian?
Yes, I do want to bring up a couple of issues. One is over the long holiday break from Christmas to Armenian Christmas, from December 26th to January 6th, we had a couple of accidents on Glen Oaks, one of which had a tragic fatality involved in it. And I know that we sit here and we have these policy discussions about mobility, about how to address the reckless driving concerns that we have in our community. And I think that some of what we have done will allow us to see results, but in the meantime, until some of the projects that we have in pipeline are implemented, I'd like staff to tell me and council what we're doing in terms of outreach, in terms of public education. I've talked before about how part of the problem, not the entirety of it, but part of it is that the states have removed driver's education from the high school curriculum. We are having a whole generation of drivers learning to drive that may not have the tools necessary to be safe drivers. So I would like us to do a more active program in terms of outreach and public relations and information out there. You know, we have a number of social media outlets, but we need to move beyond just what the city's social media and other communication platforms are and go to the places where people are. If that means, going out to other social media platforms anyways. So I would like staff to come back and say what we're doing in terms of communication and doing it in different languages. Years ago, we used to have programs that would try to encourage people to not dress in dark colors if they're pedestrians, to look both ways, for drivers to be careful. I mean, it's an all hands on deck situation, and I'd like us to have a discussion on that. So that's the first thing. And do I need a second from my colleagues for us to have that? Can we have a memo?
We can have a memo, Councilmember Kasakian. As you may recall, this will be agendized for discussion. If you want to report on the 23rd, then that's when you take the votes for
Well,
correction.
I don't know if my colleagues think that this requires a greater discussion than just staff doing the outreach that needs to be done. If you can provide me with some actionable items that staff is working on, it doesn't need it. I think we all would be in agreement on it. We don't need to have a whole council session on it. I think we're going to have discussions in the future on mobility and how to improve the safety for pedestrians, bicyclists, and motorists.
Yeah, we'll Councilmember Kasakian provide a memo with some options that currently staff is using, as well as part of our Vision Zero policy and the efforts in that area.
Okay. And then also we have seen, and lately we've all experienced or heard about through various sources about these pop-up sidewalk restaurants. We had food trucks. Now there are vendors who are taking over the whole sidewalk. I don't object to anyone trying to start a small business, make a go of it, but when they're taking up the entire public right of way, when they're impeding pedestrians from using the sidewalk safely, when they're taking business away from brick and mortar businesses that pay their share of fees and their share of taxes in the city, I think we ought to have some regulations on these individuals, even if there's county ordinances and rules that may supersede the city. I think we need to take control of our sidewalks and have these businesses pay their fair share for the maintenance and upkeep and cleanliness of the city. So I'd like us to agendize that and have a discussion as to what we can do to put some controls on these vendors that have come into the city or that are in the city and they're popping up, these pop-up shops, and figure out a way where our brick and mortar businesses and these businesses can coexist without one impeding the other and by not taking over public spaces.
Okay.
Councilmember Sakin, I mean, very similar to what I had brought up. My understanding was that staff was going to put together and have a discussion. Do you want that in memo format and then just agendize, or I was going to give them an opportunity to come
Sure.
up with some of that and then agendize, but
I mean,
I was open to that.
I'm fine with having a briefing first, but I think that this is going to go beyond that because there are certain things that supersede the city authority. I've heard comments like this is allowed by the county, and I think we need to have a discussion about what fees we want to place on such businesses and how we can ensure that the businesses that are operating are in compliance with health codes and other city regulations.
Council members, actually, there's a state bill that allows these street vendors to operate in the cities. And we, as I mentioned, we are going to convene a meeting, and we need to get some clarity on what those requirements, if any, are, and how much leeway we have as far as enforcing our own ordinance.
And again, this is not to disallow anyone from operating a business, but we as a body have the ability to determine the place and appropriateness of operation.
Absolutely.
And I know that when food trucks were first popping up in Pasadena, there was some pushback, especially in the Old Town area, because they were competing with a lot of the businesses that were there. So I believe Pasadena came up with an ordinance or rules that said you can operate after the brick and mortar businesses are closed, which tends to be the time when most people have cravings for street tacos or whatever else is being cooked up. So I think that we should consider similar rules for the city of Glendale.
I'm in agreement. I was just going to give staff an opportunity, so. Okay.
Okay. Councilmember Najarian?
Yes, just a few. I'm very excited about the interest that council is showing regarding the pedestrian accidents. I would like to, as a policymaker and as part of the board that makes the policy, I want to dig down into the details about these accidents. I don't want to be prevented from seeing a police report describing why that particular accident, let's say, that occurred on Glen Oaks happened. Were there drugs involved? Was it racing involved? Was it distracted driving? Was it an equipment failure? To hide behind a request that, oh, it's an investigative matter, no one can see it, I take strong objection to. If we're serious about cutting our fatalities, we as the council need to know what was the cause of these accidents and take appropriate policy decision steps afterwards. So if staff would like to get back to me, whether it's the city attorney, the police chief, the city manager, there's no reason why we can't see these accident reports with names redacted to figure out what's going on and find out how we're going to stop it.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. City Manager, anything you want to say about that?
No, sir.
No, okay.
We'll get back to council with some information.
Okay. And so I have one item that I would like to place on the new business agenda for January 30th when I return, because I'll be missing the next meeting, the January 23rd meeting. But this has to do with how we respond to the Berkeley case involving all-electric building ordinances, a case that is, I guess, invalidating some parts of our all-electric reach code. So I think we need to, we're going to need to modify our code, and I would like staff to come back and tell us what some of our options are in order to do that. I believe it's imperative that we do what we can do to reduce pollution, especially climate pollutants from buildings. So we still have that policy objective that we all agree to. But because of this court decision, it looks like we're going to have to restructure our approach, and probably it will be something like a electric preferred ordinance, which will still allow gas. It won't prohibit it, but it will require that for somebody implementing gas in a new building, that they have to meet other higher energy efficiency levels so that there's an offset. So yes, I would like us to look at that. And in the meantime, I'd also like to see if what we can do to amend our existing code in a way that it can remain in place, because I don't want us to lose the other components of that on photovoltaics and electric vehicles. We also currently in our code have a requirement that if a development receives a waiver, so we have a process for infeasibility, I guess for technical infeasibility, we have a process for providing waivers. If the waiver is granted, the project still has to be electric ready, meaning that if there's a future retrofit, the wiring and the electric components are ready so that it's not prohibitively expensive. So I would like to see if there's a way we can modify our ordinance so that we can give a blanket waiver, and that would keep in place the electric ready component to that waiver. So if we could bring that on January 30th, that would be great. And that's all I have. Happy New Year to everybody, and happy Armenian Christmas and all the other festivities that we missed during our long break. Okay, so what is next?
Next are community event announcements, and we have one speaker card.
Okay. Okay. Rafi Vartanian. You have 3 minutes.
Happy New Year. Thank you. The Glendale Poetry Program, the Glendale Poet Laureate Program invites one and all to the next installment of our quarterly workshop reading series. We'll develop poems and explore craft alongside our wonderful featured poets, Shahe Mankerian, who is the author of History of Forgetfulness, Brian Sonia Wallace, who served the city of West Hollywood as their poet laureate, and Xochitl Julissa Bermejo, author of Posada, Offerings of Witness and Refuge. This workshop reading is themed around finding futures, promises, and perils of the path ahead. This will be free and open to the public. All levels of experience and language are welcome. Light refreshments will be provided, and it will take place this Saturday, January 13th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Pacific Park Library. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, what is our next item?
Our next item is adoption of ordinances. A, Glendale Water and Power regarding ordinance authorizing the issuance by the city of not to exceed $230 million aggregate principal amount of the City of Glendale Electric Revenue Bonds 2024 series and $70 million aggregate principal amount of City of Glendale Electric Revenue Bonds 2024 refunding series payable out of the Electric Works Revenue Fund and approving certain other actions in connection therewith. And it was introduced by Councilmember Devine on 12/19/2023. 1, resolution authorizing the invitation of bids for the purchase of electric revenue bonds 2024 series and electric revenue bonds 2024 refunding series of the City of Glendale, approving a notice of intention to sell bonds, a preliminary official statement, a notice inviting bids, an official bid form, authorizing the publication of a notice of intention to sell bonds, authorizing the execution and delivery of a final official statement, and 8th, supplement to the indenture of trust, a 9th supplement to indenture of trust, a continuing disclosure agreement, and an escrow agreement, and authorizing the award of the bonds. 2, resolution of appropriation.
Okay, that was a mouthful. Mr. Galanian?
Yes, Mayor Bromman, member of City Council, as it was read into the record, this item was introduced on December 19th. This is just to adopt that introduction ordinance. If you like a quick refresher, staff from GWP are available to make a quick presentation. Otherwise, it's, we wait for your direction.
Okay, do we need a refresher from anyone? No, I don't think
And
so.
just procedurally, if we can get the ordinance adopted or considered for adoption first, so that's 7A, and then 7A 1 and 2, which are the two resolutions, can be adopted separately.
Okay, and do we have any speakers on this?
We do not.
No, okay. So can I get a motion for, this is for
Just 7A, the ordinance.
7A, for the
Correct.
ordinance.
I apologize, we just got a phone call. We have one speaker.
Oh, we do? Okay,
And I'll make the motion.
okay. All right, let's hear from the speaker.
We have Mike Mohill on the air. Mike, you're on air. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Happy New Year's all. This bond is outrageous. Outrageous. You are making, I'll be dead in 5 years. You're going to have the children, your children, and the goddamn second and third generation of kids to pay for these goddamn bonds. You should be embarrassed. What kind of management you people are doing? And you want something, this is terrible. The Green New Deal, great. But who's going to pay for the Green New Deal? You want these kids to pay for it? This is your dream, not their dream. Why don't you tell the council, why don't you tell the public tonight exactly how you came up with all this money for them to pay in their lifetime? This is disgusting. Thank you.
Okay. With that, we have a motion.
Motion, yeah.
Do we have a second? Are you seconding it? No?
No.
Oh,
I'll second.
okay. We have a motion and a second. Let's have a roll call then.
Council members Azadarian,
No.
Devine, Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Botman.
Yes. Okay. And then you're saying we need a separate resolution?
Apologies, a separate motion for 7A 1 and 2, which are the resolutions, one for the bids and then the other for the appropriation.
Okay. Motion
I'll
for
make,
the
I'll make that,
resolutions?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. And a second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Council members Azadarian,
No.
Devine, Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Botman.
Yes. Okay. On to action items. What's our first action item?
First action item A is Human Resources regarding Memorandum of Understanding between the City and International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 18. 1, resolution approving and adopting the MOU commencing August 1st, 2023 and terminating after July 31st, 2027. 2, resolution providing for the establishment of classification titles and compensation for employees covered by the City IBEW MOU. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Galanian.
Yes, Mayor Bromman, member of City Council, We started back in January of last year and been engaged in labor negotiations with IBEW Local 18 Union that represents the Glendale Water and Power field employees, and in the process to finalize a successor MOU. MOUs define wages, hours, terms, and employment conditions for the city employees. The previous MOU with IBEW Local 18 expired on July 31st, and after an 11-month negotiation, we are we're pleased to report that both parties, the city as well as IBEW Local 18, have reached agreement on a new MOU. This new MOU is for 4 years, and it goes into effect this month. And it includes cost of living adjustments over the 4-year period, as well as some additional increases for electrical line mechanic series, amongst other minor adjustments. And it will affect 110 current employees and 39 open positions, which total 149 represented positions. With that, I recommend that council approve this MOU as presented tonight.
Okay. Do we have any, do we have any speakers?
Not on this item.
Okay.
I'll move to approve it.
A second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Council members Asadrian,
Yes.
Divine, Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Botman.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is Public Works regarding ordinance for introduction to amend Glendale Municipal Code chapters related to refuse, yard trimmings, and recyclable material collection and disposal and solid waste disposal. One ordinance for introduction to amend Chapter 8.44 and 8.56 of the Glendale Municipal Code to address state mandated refuse diversion and organics management requirements. 2, resolution adding and modifying citations and fines in the citywide fee schedule for enforcement of waste management protocols.
Okay. Mr. Galanian.
Yes, Mayor Brown, members of City Council, as a result of some changes in state law and some discrepancies in the existing code, we needed to make some minor modifications or clean up language in the Glendale Municipal Code, and hence the reason for this ordinance amendment. And to share the details of these recommended changes, I'll turn it over to Etienne Ozarak, our Integrated Waste Superintendent, for the report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. We're here to address changes in SB 1383, the model ordinance language that were based in SB 1383, as well as the franchise program. Now we're going to figure out this clicker. There we go. Just to bring you up to date, as you know, SB 1383 became law in 2016, requiring the diversion of organic material. They finalized the regulations in 2019, and in 2021, you passed 2 ordinances, one which was the SB 1383 ordinance language, and the second one which had to do with the implementation of the SB 1383 through the franchise program. You'll recall that. In December 2021, the franchise program went into effect, and what remains in our current timeline is where we will be on targets and for meeting the edible food recovery and the recycling rate, the 75% reduction in organics waste. And right now we're in the process of working on those numbers for what we've accomplished to date. So this evening, we would like to seek approval to amend Title 8, which is Health and Safety, Sections 844 and 856, as well as modifying the citywide fee schedule. There are 3 focus areas. One is a clarification on self-hauling language. The second one is incorporating enforcement code language, which is currently in 844180, into the citywide fee schedule. And the third areas are consistency in terminology in some minor areas, which was in the staff report, and I'll spend some time on covering that this evening. So the first one is the clarification on self-hauling. We have areas within 844080 which implies allowing self-hauling for all three streams, the organics, the recycling, and the trash. However, we also have language in .082A, which requires all account holders to be serviced by a franchise hauler. So they're either serviced by a franchise hauler or they're not. And so this language would allow the self-hauling for recycling and organics only, but would dedicate the trash to one of the city's contracted haulers. Before I proceed, are there any questions about this self-hauling question?
Questions?
Okay. Moving on to the second area, which has to do with the fees for noncompliance. In the code, currently, we have sections A through D and F through G, and which allows for civil remedies, process for enforcement. That language is not changing. The only area, because at the time that the code was adopted in 2021, the language was put into the code instead of being put into the citywide fee schedule. So the change at this point is to take this language and incorporate it into the citywide fee schedule.
And I think you want to advance the slide.
Oh. Thank you.
So maybe you could just
Yes.
refer to this slide. So we
Yeah,
know
so
where we are.
these areas, A through D and F through H, do not change. That language was based on the Cal Recycle Model Ordinance language. Obviously, Cal Recycle was not aware that we operate differently with regards to the actual citywide fee, so that's why they're being transferred into the citywide fee schedule. Specifically, we are removing 6 areas and adding 14. When we were doing this research, we also found that some of the references in the old ones that are being removed were no longer connected to the code in any way, so this is what's being cleaned up. So the 14 areas that are mentioned here are the ones that are specifically addressed in SB 1383, that the city has to have enforcement provisions or an enforcement program to address these areas. So these would be the areas that would be incorporated into the citywide fee schedule. The third area are the minor changes. Clearer definitions, standardized definitions. For example, in some cases, we refer to them as bins. In other areas, we refer to them as carts. Also, consistent language with the use of, related to who is a generator, so that it's used throughout. The same terms are used throughout 844 and 856. There were some minor areas as well where we had identified a party, an officer of health officer for the city of Glendale, so that was standardized with current practice. We also took the time to eliminate redundant or unnecessary language. So those are the 3 areas that are being changed, and it's not really going to have any impact on the generators or our residents here. So this is part of the major outreach effort that has been going on for the last 2 years. We are still going to continue the major outreach efforts, which I want to summarize here. Both the city as well as the franchise haulers make customary use of OOPS tags to inform their residents in terms of the level of contamination. And usually, when we talk about contamination, we talk about anything that's more than 10%. 10% is kind of the threshold. Anything less than 10% is acceptable to the haulers. As well, we have the Recycle Coach app, which was presented to you last September. And up to date now, we have 12,293 users that have latched onto this useful tool. We have distributed 1,900 kitchen pails. We've also, the multifamily property managers toolkit there, we've also did a direct mailing to all property managers. That was about 3,000 packages. This is an 8-page package that went to every property owner. And finally, the door hangers. We have so far distributed 12,000 door hangers to the tenants in the city. Do you have any questions that you'd
Any
like to ask?
questions? Councilmember Asatrian.
Prohibition on excluded waste. So maybe I can just premise it noting, I have grave concerns about fining our residents, especially in multifamily, when time and again we've had conversations, even on this dais, where I particularly felt like even our Public Works Director at the time was presenting data that seemed incorrect. I asked for updated information because I felt like there was misinformation coming out of our City Council meeting on this item. I remember our mayor and our Public Works Director arguing over a pizza box and where that even goes. But one of my conversations has been that our residents who are in multifamily units and just renters in general probably don't even know that the trash bins have changed. I will say that even for my building, the green bin was just placed outside my door. You know, I had some anecdotal conversations with residents who got these bins. Some thought it was like a pot for Christmas and a toy for the kids. I know there was a label on there, but I'm just saying that I think when you don't come from this world where you know about recycling, it takes extra effort to educate. But more importantly, those that are in multifamilies, I don't even think that are aware that those trash bins on the first floor have changed, or especially in, you know, when I look at even my complex that has 50 units, I've said it time and again, Martha from the third floor is not hauling out her organics all around the building and going and finding the trash bin, which also tends to be locked a lot of times. So I have issues with how this is being pushed out. And I recognize that you guys have put those things out to property managers, but I would like clarification on what the process would be, especially for multifamily. Who's gonna, you know, the report comes back, it's non-compliant. A lot of it is going into just the general big trash bin, because again, multifamilies tend to use chutes. And our older buildings don't have that separated chutes for recycling. And
Right.
So can you walk me through?
Well, when we use the word compliance from a state perspective, they're asking the question, does the business have service? Yes, check. We know they have service. Everyone has service. That's the first level. The second one is, have the tenant received an annual notice once a year that this program exists? And we know through the survey that everyone knows that organics is a requirement statewide. So that's the second thing that CalRecycle is looking at. They're not looking at individual participants and compliance at that level. Whether an individual is doing it right or doing it incorrectly, the best we can do is to provide educational tools to say, ideally, this is what we'd like to see. There is a level of tolerance with regards to contamination. If it gets to be, what we're talking about with regards to fines and the possibility of fines, and I want to roll out what the process really is any customer, any account holder who defies and just says, I'm not going to do it, period. That's when this applies. So right now, in the franchise agreement, the franchise hauler is responsible for all of the outreach, and they're responsible for monitoring compliance and contamination rates. So there's a 3-step process, which is in the franchise agreement. It's not in the municipal code, where the hauler will go and say, and talk to the customer and saying, too much contamination. They're still required to collect the material, but they leave the oops tag. The second level is if they go for a visit and it hasn't been corrected, they go and they say, here's another oops tag, but recognize that if you don't correct this, you will be assessed a contamination fee. So there's 3 steps before it even comes to us, and they maintain the records of working with the customers. That's their responsibility. If a customer really, if they're getting no cooperation at all, that's when they report to us and they just say, we need your assistance, we need your help. We've got a customer that just doesn't want to do anything. Now, in the last 2 years, because recognize that this program has been in place since April 2021, we have encountered that. We've encountered people who have resisted. We've worked with them. The hauler has worked with them. It's not a perfect world, but we're at a point of hand-holding and just saying we need to have this tool because CalRecycle requires us to have a process in place. But
the fines are what you're recommending, right? That's not part of the...
that is part of the SB 1383 language. Because those fines...
To have these fines at these rates?
Yes.
So how would it work for a multifamily?
I doubt it will come to that because I don't see how they can really police it. But it's certainly, it's to the account holder.
So
And it's to
it's
the
either the
account
property
holder.
manager
Yeah.
or
The property manager.
or the
The
HOA.
responsibility for having a clean program has been put on the property manager.
Okay. And is there a process in place for educating somebody that just moves in? I mean, if you're talking about renters,
yes,
right? Like
yeah.
you do an annual
Yeah.
education piece.
The property
you know.
manager is responsible for educating the tenant within 14 days of them moving in.
Okay. And our haulers provide the information to be
Yes.
passed on?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, I know.
No. Councilmember Kasakian.
I thought those were valid questions. It seems to me odd that, with the push from the state for us to increase density and to build multifamily housing above and beyond what, we're building in terms of single-family homes and trends moving in that direction, that they wouldn't have had enough forethought to figure these things out. So I appreciate Councilmember El-Sadrian sticking to this and asking that question.
Credit to Sacramento, respectfully.
Yeah.
So is this, so when you say that there isn't really a way for them
It's
to track, so is this one of those things where it looks great on the books and somebody got a headline out of this, but then in practice,
Pretty much.
Well, in
business as usual?
In getting to this place, what I was curious about is what are other jurisdictions doing? Like, what's the difference between having having encoded language, but what's really going on in the field? And I've reached out to 21 jurisdictions, of which 11 responded, to be able to understand what's the real world, how's this going to work? And obviously, because it's a January 1st, 2024, nobody's figured it out. And we're ahead of the pack by having consistent service, but some of these jurisdictions don't even have an organics collection service in place.
Okay. Thank you, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay. Councilmember Najarian, do you have any questions or comments?
No questions, thank you.
Yeah. None from me. This all seems reasonable and necessary, and so I think at this point, and any public comments? No? Okay. At this point, we need somebody to introduce the ordinance.
I'll introduce it.
Okay, so we have Councilmember Kasakian introducing the ordinance, and then we have the resolution adding and modifying the citations and fines in the citywide fee schedule. Can we get a motion and a second on that?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the resolution, and roll call, please.
Councilmembers Asadrian,
Yes.
Divine, Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Brotman.
Yes. Okay, very good. And then the ordinance will come back for adoption on the 23rd.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Our next item I know is going to be continued, but what do we do? Do we read it into the record?
Mr. Mayor, yes, please, if the item be read into the record and the hearing opened, and then we continue to date certain of January 30th.
Okay.
And I think it's sufficient to just read the hearing item. You don't have to read all the action items.
Okay.
Okay. The hearing is regarding Public Works regarding introduction of ordinance for public and private indigenous tree protections to be continued to January 30th, 2024.
Okay. And I open the hearing, so I'll
I'll make-
hereby open the hearing.
And get a motion to
I'll
continue.
make a motion to move the hearing to date certain of January 30th.
We do have one public comment on this item. Do we
Do we take public comment?
move this?
You can, or you can just limit it to, you can take the comment, or you can limit it to just whether to extend it, or you can just decide not to
Let's
take it.
Yeah, I
let's
would-
take the
I would
comment. Let's
urge
take the
us to
comment.
hear.
But I just want to make sure, so we have a motion to continue. We need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, so before we take roll call, we'll hear from the public, and then we'll take a roll call. Okay, Ramela Iragi.
Hi, everybody. Happy New Year. Actually, I'm here today. I want to talk on behalf of my friend. Her name is Mary. Hopefully, she's listening here. Actually, she asked me to come here and talk about preservation of deodar trees. They're not native to California, but she asked me to come here, speak about that because they really need to be preserved, and they provide a great shade for the hot summer of Southern California, and beside that, it has great benefits. It's got antibacterial properties, and so, yeah, they really need to be protected. So because they've been seen that been chopped off here and there, those trees. So, Actually, that's my friend. Shout out to her, Mary. We met at the coffee hours with the mayor. So, yeah. So basically, this message from her. As well as cedar trees. So I know cedar trees are California native, but still they need to be protected. They're my favorite trees. So yeah, I'm gonna encourage you. Preserve those trees. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we'll have a roll call on the continuation, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Do you need to close the public hearing?
Oh,
No, I leave it open until the
Anyways,
30th,
yeah, that's
right?
right. Okay. Roll call.
Yes, roll call.
Council members Asadrian,
Yes.
Divine, Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Botman.
Yes. Okay, very good. And our next item?
Next are reports, information only. A project update bicycle transportation plan.
Okay, Mr. Galanian.
Yeah, Mayor Brotman, members of City Council, this is a long-awaited report that we'll be presenting to you this evening. City Council actually directed that we update the citywide bicycle transportation plan back in February of 2022 for the next 2 decades of safe, convenient, and inviting biking infrastructure in Glendale. Staff and our consultant have conducted a significant outreach, including the technical team, project development team, Sustainability Commission, as well as Transportation and Parking Commission input. That's resulted in a citywide preliminary bicycle network. And staff will share with you the progress of this plan development and be seeking council's input. I will turn it over to Mr. Bradley Calvert, our Community Development Director, for some introductory remarks, and he will introduce our consultant that will provide the bulk of the presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I believe the city manager covered just about everything I would have added to this, so I'm going to go ahead and turn to our Associate Transportation or Mobility Planner, Arzu Kamali. She's going to give a brief introduction before our consultant goes through the process and how we developed this preliminary network, as well as the public outreach that we have done.
Good evening, Mayor, Council Member, and City Manager. We appreciate the opportunity to be here today to provide you with an update for our citywide bicycle transportation plan and seek your valuable comments and recommendations. As you may recall, our existing bicycle transportation plan was adopted on October 2012, and recognizing the evolving needs of our community, in February 2022, City Council directed staff to initiate the update of citywide bicycle transportation plan. Our goal is to create a visionary framework for the next 20 years, outlining plans in planning, development, design, and maintenance of a safe and convenient bike network throughout Glendale. To ensure a comprehensive and inclusive approach, we have formed a dedicated project development team that consists of diverse range of participants, including citywide department, community members, regional stakeholders, and members of TPC and sustainability. Their insights and experiences have been played a crucial role in shaping and informing the update bicycle transportation plan. We have actively involved our community in the development of the plan. To accomplish this, we organized extensive outreach events, conducted surveys, and created an online interactive map. We received over 400 responses to the surveys and accumulated more than 100 feedbacks and comments on the preliminary bike network map. To provide further details on the project's progress and update, I am pleased to introduce our consultant project manager, Sam Former from Bro Happold. We are looking forward to hear your comments and inputs to create a more accessible and sustainable transportation network for our residents. Thank you.
Great. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sam Fromer, council members, the public. From Bureau Happold, I am the project manager for... Oh. All right, should I start over? Should I start over? Okay. Good evening, council members, mayor, the public. My name is Sam Fromer from Bureau Happold. We are a planning and engineering firm and the lead consultant on the bicycle transportation plan. I'm the project manager. And for the past 9 or so months, we've been working with the city and the public on this BTP. I've been encouraged to quickly review what we've done so far and our preliminary recommendations. And really, this is the opportunity to, as we approach the end of our process, to get feedback from council so we can modify and update everything as we move into our draft final plan. But I'll get into all of that in a moment. As Arzu explained, we've been working to collaboratively create a 20-year plan, bicycle plan for the city of Glendale. This is an update from the 2012 plan. When you think about how much has changed in the past 20 years and how much will change in the next 20 years, we really want to think ambitiously, boldly, and think about what kind of streets and what kind of city we want in Glendale over the next 5, 10, and 20 years. So I'm going to talk about the project background, a crash analysis and existing conditions, public engagement, our goals, and then our preliminary network recommendations and next steps. So as you all are extremely familiar, and as already mentioned, this is an update to the 2012 plan. Here in Glendale, it's a compact community. There's a lot of commuters, there's a lot of shoppers. You're constrained by the mountains, by the rivers. You also have some exciting projects coming in, the Metro BRT project, the Verdugo Wash project. All of these factors contribute to the bicycle transportation plan. It's also an ideal place for biking. especially downtown. It's dense, there's lots of destinations, there's lots of housing, there's parks, there's transit, it's flat. It's really a wonderful community. The weather is fantastic. So it's an ideal place for biking. I think there's a huge latent demand for biking in Glendale, and once you unlock that by providing safe and connected infrastructure, you will see people biking around. There are challenges, of course. All of the freeways. Glendale sits, at the entrance to the valley. You're squeezed between the mountains. That also means you're squeezed between the rivers and the waterways. So all of these present some opportunities and some challenges. Glendale's also extremely hilly the further north you go, right? So these are all some factors that make it, difficult to cross and get around Glendale, not just on a bicycle, walking and also driving. Your existing bike network, based on the 2012 bike plan, is fairly disconnected, relies heavily on what are called sharrows or class 3 bike lanes, right? Those are just the chevrons painted in the middle of the road, and then you hope for the best. There's a low coverage, and so in the end, you have less than 10 miles of what are considered standard bike lanes or class 2 bike lanes. That's that first category on the table. The city of Glendale is about 10 miles long from top to bottom, so even if you were to put all of those bike lanes together, you wouldn't be able to bike across the city. And really what we want to do is change all that, right? And make it possible to bike across the city or bike within your neighborhood, bike to your local shopping district. Before I move on, I'm just going to do a quick primer on different bike lane types. Class 1 multi-use path, those are usually in parks. Those are fully separated from traffic. Class 4 protected bike lanes, you have a very small segment of those on Los Feliz as you cross into the city of LA. Otherwise, those don't really exist here in Glendale yet. A classic bike lane, class 2. As you can see in the photo, those are just usually painted along the curb or the parking lane. Important for the city of Glendale, class 2 climbing lanes. I'll talk about those a little bit more in detail, but that's a class 2 in the uphill direction and sharrows in the downhill direction. And then class 3 bike boulevard is using a lot of traffic calming to slow down vehicles and divert vehicles from these streets, so it becomes a much more comfortable biking environment. And then I already spoke about sharrows, which are classic class 3. So just to get into the details of the bike boulevard, again, this is using things like diverters, traffic circles, chicanes, and speed humps to slow traffic, discourage through traffic, remove through traffic from streets, but allow people biking to continue through. So that creates a very low stress environment to bike on. And I'm happy to answer questions about that now or later. And then again, climbing lanes you create a class 2 bike lane in the uphill direction, so there's dedicated space for the cyclist who's going to be going very slowly up your very significant hills. And then in the downhill direction, usually you use these because the streets are more narrow, you can't fit a class 2 bike lane in the downhill direction, and so you use sharrows. It's much more easy and less scary to bike in traffic when you're traveling downhill at speed. Okay, so I'm going to get into our crash analysis. The city, a couple years ago, completed the pedestrian action plan, and they did a 10-year crash analysis. A typical crash analysis usually looks at 5 years of data. To match the pedestrian plan, we also did a 10-year look back at crash data. And that also helped to compare before and after the pandemic. Although, just because of the delay in reporting, we don't have a ton of data post-pandemic. We also, based on feedback from our project development team, included property damage only crashes. Typically those aren't included, but we included them to get a more holistic look at where crashes are happening. Oftentimes the difference between a PDO or property damage only crash and an injury crash is luck, right? So this gives a broader picture. And then you, if you've ever been in the city of Glendale, you may not be surprised to learn that these are the top 10 crash corridors, or what we've identified as safety corridors, right? These are your major boulevards. These are the wide streets, often 4 or 6 lanes wide, 2 directions, sometimes 1 direction, connect to the freeways. There's a lot of different destinations along these corridors, so there's a lot of different activity. And then during non-peak hours, there's very little traffic and people have the opportunity to speed, right? So this is Glen Oaks and Brandon, Colorado, Broadway, the 10 streets listed here, right? And they're all in the downtown area. Fortunately, the good news is that crashes over time in the city and similarly in the county have declined. The bad news is we don't know exactly why. It's very difficult to pinpoint that. So there's been citywide education campaigns. That's a good thing. There might just be an overall decline in biking as people feel less safe biking in the city or in the county as a whole. And then other commuting pattern changes due to the pandemic. So again, we can't pinpoint these changes. Some of them might be positive, some of them might be negative. But we can't say exactly why. Overall, our crash analysis and our other existing conditions analysis, which I have not talked about in any detail, have really pointed to, as I was saying earlier, Glendale could be an ideal place for biking, especially the downtown and West Glendale areas. This is where everything overlaps. These are your high crash areas, but these are also where you have high destinations, where you have trips that are under 3 miles, where there's a lot of communities of equity concern, of health concern, connection to transit, connection to the LA River, and to other significant bike corridors. So our analysis and the feedback that we've heard over the past year or so has really concentrated a lot on these areas. But there's a citywide bike plan. I just want to ensure you that we have looked north of Glen Oaks Boulevard as well. I'm gonna do a quick overview of our public outreach. As mentioned before, our outreach has been extensive. I just want to say that the city of Glendale is incredible. The amount of feedback we've gotten, the level of detail of feedback that we've gotten, people are enthusiastic. They care so much about this community, and that has really shown through in our public outreach. The dedication of the project development team, when we've had online surveys, when we've had in-person events, people show up and they provide really detailed information. It's been incredibly helpful in our process as we've drafted and gone through an extensive drafting process of our recommendations, and we continue to do that. We've gotten really minute comments about certain blocks, certain streets, certain intersections, and that has been really helpful. As consultants looking at a citywide plan, we can't go everywhere and know everything, so that level of feedback has been really, really important. And so we've reached out to people through community events. We've done pop-up events at other citywide events, and we've communicated this out through a multitude of channels, handing out flyers, emails, community newsletters, through the PDT, social media, etc. Overall, we've had 14 in-person events. We've reached over 600 people during those events. As mentioned, we had an online survey and a web map where we've reached over 500 people and gotten, again, a plethora of detailed comments. It's amazing how much people will write on an online survey in the city of Glendale. Maybe you already knew that. We've done outreach in 4 different languages: English, Armenian, Spanish, and Korean. And at them, we've had 3 PDT meetings. We have our 4th one tomorrow, and we'll probably have we will have a 5th one, sometime in the coming months when we've drafted the plan. And the feedback has been loud and extremely consistent. People are concerned about safety and connectivity. Those are the top two things that come up every time. People don't feel safe biking around the city. They want to feel safe. They want to be able to get to where they're going. The current network is not connected. They want a connected network. And then furthermore, a usable bike network, and one that is accessible to all residents. Through the public outreach and with our project development team, we've also established a set of goals, which have been guiding principles. Again, safety and connectivity are the most important ones that we keep hearing about: accessibility, equity, implementability, public health, and environment. I'm happy to talk about all of this in more detail when we get to Q&A. So how did we develop our preliminary bike network recommendations? So again, we take our guiding principles, our goals, and start there. Again, safety, connectivity, and the importance of public input. And we've mapped those and overlaid them, right? And then we think about what kind of network do we want? And overall, we're striving for two things. One, being able to connect across the city, and two, being able to connect to your localized neighborhoods. Glendale has all of these wonderful little local neighborhood centers, right, where there's local shopping and dining and libraries, parks. I think this is where a lot of potential is. People might not be able to bike to work, but I think people will be able to bike within their neighborhood and take their kids to school or go shopping or eating or wherever they need to do, whatever they want to do, within a couple miles of their home. Once we've established the network, then we use national and local guidance on what type of facility is appropriate for that street. And then we've gone through this very extensive drafting process where we created a first draft and went over that with city staff from planning and public works. We then created a second draft, which was presented to our PDT. We did that classic thing that planners like to do. We printed out the maps, we all stood around them, we drew on them, we put down Post-it notes and stickers. We took that and created a fourth draft that then went out to the public. We had open houses, we posted it online for comments, we presented it to the TPC and the Sustainability Commission, and now we are here tonight. This is the fourth draft that we're presenting here, which means that there is a fifth draft. So if you don't like something, please let us know. So this just illustrates, again, how we developed the first draft. We combine these different factors to identify a network and then use federal, national, and local guidance to determine the appropriate facility. So basically, that depends on the speed of the street, the average daily traffic, the width of the street, and the local context. So basically, the wider and scarier a street gets, the higher and more protection the bike facilities should have, right? Conversely, if it's a very quiet and local and lovely little street, then you can have lower levels of protection. Again, just as a reminder, this is our existing network. We have less than 10 miles of bike lanes. And then this is the preliminary network. We're going basically from 10 miles of bike lanes to over 80 miles of bike lanes. We're covering the entire city. We're using nearly 40 miles of protected bike lanes, really more than that when you consider our future focus category, which I know we've already received comments on, and I'm already willing, to reconsider that. I'm happy to talk about that more as well. So what we've strived and what I think we've accomplished with this draft is, and the entire drafting process, is creating a network that makes sense for the city, that incorporates the feedback that we've received, excuse me, and reaches across the city. And so next, once we've finalized this map based on the feedback we received tonight, we will then create a phasing for it. So based on these 7 criteria, which are primarily based off of our project goals. And then I just want to emphasize the final one, number 7, geographic equity. If you look at all of our project goals and everything I was talking about earlier, you could end up with all of your phasing happening in downtown. And so what we want to also do is acknowledge that there are other parts of the city that deserve these facilities. And so while there might be some initial priority projects in downtown, we also want to be cognizant of the fact that in our initial years, we want to be able to spread those facilities across the city so that if you live in La Crescenta, you'll be able to bike to Honolulu or wherever you want to go. And so that will create our project phasing. Again, probably create some quick wins and some high important impact projects that will cut across downtown, and then phasing over the next 20 years. And then some non-infrastructure recommendations that we're also looking at: lowering speed limits on high crash corridors, restricting right turns on red at important intersections or along important corridors, legalizing sidewalk riding, also recommending further education campaigns, and then some non-network recommendations: bike parking, wayfinding and signage, end-of-trip amenities such as fix-it stations and showers in buildings. We've heard a lot about bike-activated traffic signals. People end up at a traffic signal, the light never changes because they're not detected by they're not modified to detect a cyclist-only vehicles. And then bike boxes as well, which are pictured here, which help to make cyclists more visible at intersections and give them a little breathing room. So next steps, again, we are still drafting these recommendations. Your feedback here tonight and the feedback we hear from the public will be incorporated and considered as we move forward. And then once we have a final preliminary network, we will then do project phasing, we will do cost estimating. We've already started to identify potential funding sources, both local and federal, and then we go through a CEQA analysis. The CEQA analysis then has to go through a public comment period, right, a typical 30-day public comment period. At the same time, we'll present that back to our commissions and the PDT. And then all of that, any final feedback we get will go into the final plan. And I will come back here when the final plan is ready and present this to you for adoption. And with that, I'll open it up to thoughts, questions, and public comments.
Maybe we'll do public comments first. Is that okay with everyone? We have 10 cards, I think, 9 cards, and 1 caller. Okay, well, it'll soon be 10 cards and 1 caller. And we'll keep the phones open for 5 minutes into the speakers. So we'll start with Patrick Murphy, you're first. And you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, council members. My name is Patrick Murphy. I'm speaking on behalf of the Verdugo Wash Neighborhoods Coalition with over 800 members. I want to point out that every week I get the agenda via email. For this meeting, I did not get the agenda. Don't know why. The coalition was not notified of the report being presented. We just heard that there were 14 in-person events and there were 600 responses in those events. And then there were 500 responses, more or less, from the website, the surveys. That's 1,100. We have 200,000 people in this city. 1,100 is not a lot of people in our view to respond to something like this. We are primary stakeholders. The coalition was never directly engaged as it relates to this bike transportation plan. Nobody ever came to us and said, we'd like to have your input. Again, 800 members and continuing to grow. At a recent outreach, which I was unable to attend, I was out of town up in Spar Heights, there was a member of our coalition that attended. It was a bike transportation outreach. And Mr. Paul Rabinov spoke with our coalition representative, and mentioned that there were neighborhood committees that have been formed as part of this plan. Now, I don't know if those neighborhood committees were actually formed, but our member of the coalition mentioned that Mr. Rabinoff took pleasure in stating that the coalition was not invited to be part of any committee. We need to be included in this. We need to have our voices heard, and we are making them heard through our coalition. But we need the city and any consultant that is putting together plans to hear us loud and clear. I'm certain that the bicycle activists and the bicycle people are being heard and are being engaged on a regular basis. Again, the coalition is requesting to be notified and included in all Verdugo Wash-related items. And I will state again, the coalition is not opposed to a bike path on the Verdugo Wash in areas where it is appropriate, such as from the confluence of the LA River and the Wash up to Brand and stopping. We are, however, categorically opposed to it in areas where it is not appropriate, such as in people's backyards or in extreme fire hazards area. So, thank you for the time.
Thank you. Brenna Sensila? You're gonna have to help me.
Brenna Kinsella, thank you for your time. So I'm very excited about this bike plan, and I think it's gonna be awesome. What's really important to me is that it's implemented quickly so that people can start enjoying it and feel safer on our roads, and that, you know, things aren't held up unnecessarily and quietly forgotten. And there are a few reasons why I think that this plan is really important and why it's gonna make a huge difference in Glendale. One is the increase of people riding e-bikes to get around. E-bikes are great car replacements. They reduce traffic, they're better for the environment, and they're really easy for people to ride. People who ride e-bikes aren't necessarily like avid hardcore cyclists. Traffic is scary. It's scary for them, I'm sure. And having a bike network where they feel safe is gonna allow those e-bikes to actually be used and cut down on traffic. The second thing that I think is important and why it's important to implement this quickly relates to the increase in housing density in downtown Glendale, which I think is awesome. I think, though, with so many people living there, if all of them have to get in their car to drive to Trader Joe's, it's going to be a huge amount of traffic for everyone and kind of be a downer for anyone trying to come hang out in downtown Glendale and spend money. I personally can ride, I live in the Ross Point neighborhood, I can easily ride to Brand Boulevard in like 5 to 10 minutes. I can't get any of my friends to go with me because they're all terrified, but the ride itself is easy. And so it's easy for people to move through Glendale when they feel safe. And then the last point that I think is important is that the increase in protected bike lanes is, I think, going to make traffic and driving in Glendale safer. So by having people visible human beings traveling around the city, I think is a good reminder for people in their, big cars that like, hey, there are people around. At present, I would never ride my bike on Glen Oaks. We all know that it's extremely unsafe, but if I felt safe, it would be a great route. And I think that in general, just having, lanes made a little narrower, having things obstructing cars from going quickly, having people visibly riding bikes, having, just like people out in the community is gonna remind drivers that, there are people around, their lives matter, like maybe I'll just slow down, and it might physically make it a little bit harder for them to drive recklessly. So, thank you, very excited about the plan.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Sebastian. I don't know the last name.
Hello, everyone. Sorry if I'm a little nervous. This is my first time doing this. I wrote something really small to share my thoughts on this. Hello, my name is Sebastian Romero. I moved to Glendale 2 years ago to a small, cozy apartment. I'm originally from Bogota, Colombia, a city that values people, community, and culture. When I moved to the States almost 13 years ago, I noticed the lack of these values. Coming from a dense, strong community to the suburbs was a big change in my life. But ever since I moved to Glendale, I noticed this in the city. What I love about Glendale is that the strong sense of community, family, and culture. I can go outside and see not only people, but also families that look like me. On top of all of this, Glendale is such a dense city where you can find everything you need within a few blocks. Additionally, you have streets such as Brown, Broadway, Glendale, and Colorado with zoning maps that allows small businesses. What a dream I felt when I moved here. But everything changed when I noticed how horrible driving and parking is here. I made the decision to buy a bicycle since I noticed how everything is 5 minutes away in a bike ride. I can tell you that I've never been happier but scared at the same time. The lack of bike protected lines in this city is something that in 2024 should be a feeling of shame for all of us. How is it that Culver City, Van Nuys, and even downtown have moved forward with these programs? There's no more need for studies. The results already came in. Look at Lancaster, 8 months. Just in 8 months, they made their main street, and it only cost $10 million. And now they generated approximately $280 million since 2010. Can you imagine children and elder being able to walk, bike these streets, to go to Portos, to watch something at the Alex Theater, to go to the Americana Library and parks? How kids will be able to go bike to school? How teens will go to their first jobs? Can you picture Glendale becoming stronger with these values? How much families will thank you for generations to come, for fighting for them and thinking of them? The bike plan is amazing. 80 miles, that's amazing. 2 protected bikes. I don't want to leave the city. I came here and I would like to live here forever and have a family. I really love this city and I'm really excited to see how we can move forward with this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Right on time. Alex Cayaras.
Hello. Yeah, I'm also very excited about this plan. I moved to Glendale for the first time in 2011. So it's been 12, 13 years since then, since that first bike plan went into place. And I can't say I feel any safer biking in the city than I did then. Most of the bike infrastructure I see in the city is that share-row style where essentially, I guess the cars are supposed to think of me as important because of a thing on the road, but in Glendale, I can tell you they do not. I have a lot of friends. I hear often that, where are the bikers? If we put these bike lanes in, who's going to use them? People drive their cars. That might be true for maybe older generations, but I have a lot of friends who are millennials, Gen Z, who have bikes, who want to bike, but literally don't do it because they don't feel safe. I have my friend, he doesn't let his wife bike because he's afraid she's going to die. I have a cousin who's Gen Z who never got a driver's license, but has to rely on Uber to get around because there's no other safe option. So I think there is a generational demand for this that maybe people aren't aware of. And as soon as that safe network is in place, I really think you're going to see people doing those short trips, as we were saying, to Trader Joe's, to the Americana. It's just a no-brainer if it's nice outside, if you have an e-bike, if you have a bike, safe routes, why wouldn't you take a bike instead of dealing with your car, parking, all that stuff? So I know for me, I almost never leave Glendale. I work from home. All my trips are local, and it's just sad that I don't feel safe biking by myself in a lot of these corridors. I only really do it with a partner, with a group, because people die and people get hurt, and it's just really routine. So yeah, I think speed is necessary. As I mentioned, I've been here for 12, 13 years, and I don't feel like much has changed despite having this initial master plan. So it'd be very disappointing to be here for another 12, 13 years and see the same lack of change. I think this is exciting and we should do it and do it quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Alec Bartrosov.
Good evening, Alec Bertrosov. I'm here representing Walk Bike Glendale. Here to say that we're very excited about the bike plan in the way that it's being presented. The map looks amazing. We do want to share our concern, as we shared in a letter to council, that while we do appreciate what's on the map, we are very concerned about the way that it's going to be implemented or not be implemented. We reject Public Works' recommendation to initiate study corridors for every single project on this plan. We have seen similar language presented in the 2012 bike plan. La Crescenta Avenue was as a study corridor in that plan. Brand Boulevard was a study corridor in that plan. And those projects have not been realized to this date. La Crescenta, while is almost going to be implemented, took 4 years from start to finish when Walk Bike Glendale had to remind Public Works that that is a study corridor in an existing plan. North Brand Boulevard has been in the works for almost 10 years. We had to relitigate Glen Oaks Boulevard because when the street was repaved, it was not included. Bike lanes were not included in that repave project. So we think that a lane reconfiguration guideline should be adopted, as we mentioned in our letter, to streamline these processes, because there's no way that we are going to realize this plan in 20 years. And, you know, as an urban planner, I obviously support these plans. There's a lot of value in doing these plans, but what measurable difference have we seen on our streets to make them safer for everybody in the last decade? You know, we have a pedestrian plan, we have a bike plan, we're going to do a Vision Zero plan, but what good are these plans if we're not doing anything with them? You know, I would like to see a streamlined process for implementation. We want these safety improvements on the street in the next 5 years, not 30, 40 years. If we're ever going to pursue them at all. And, you know, we talk about the dangers of Glen Oaks, we talk about the dangers of other streets. If you make these streets safe for people who are biking, you're making it safe for everybody. And we need to see some change. And it's nice that this plan is going to pass. I have no doubt that it won't. But where is the implementation piece? And we need to push back on Public Works' idea that every single project needs to go through a very vigorous process that is literally going to take years and years for one single bike lane to go into the city. We see what that has resulted in the last 10 years, which is essentially nothing. And we don't accept that. And we hope that you don't accept that either. And I'm disappointed to not see a single staff member from Public Works to defend that recommendation. But it's very concerning. It's very concerning that we have this process that's being proposed that will delay any of these projects for a very, very, very long time. And you saw in the stats, 90% of collisions that involve a bicyclist result in an injury. And as somebody who bikes, my husband bikes, other people bike who can't be represented here, service workers, grandparents. I see the old Armenian dads that go to the park on bikes. We need to do something for them. Thank you.
Thanks.
Before he leaves, can I ask a quick question?
You want to ask a
yeah,
question?
if I may.
Mr. Bartros, we have a question.
I know you follow what other cities are doing when it comes to studying the corridors and what's being recommended by our Public Works for the lane reconfiguration. Can you, in a short bite, say, like, maybe give some examples of how that's done, maybe in city of Los Angeles or any other city that is successful in this?
Yeah, so a lane reconfiguration guideline is essentially a template that staff would follow that allows staff to determine what level of analysis, outreach, and work needs to happen on any particular street. And it's very science-based. It's based on average daily traffic, what impacts it has to the community, and it essentially outlines and triggers certain levels of work based on what the result is of that analysis. So rather than having an open-ended approach where we have 15 community meetings for a project that has 0 seconds of congestion. You have a little bit more of a streamlined approach for those projects that are low-hanging fruit. Public Works is not taking that approach. They're saying that every single project needs to be analyzed to the extent that La Crescenta did, for example, which has now taken over 4 years.
And other cities are using this guideline to replace what would be a study.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Alex Ameri.
Hello, my name is Alex Ameri. I'm a resident of the Ross Moline area. I am an occasional bicycle commuter to Beverly Hills. I ride recreationally, former Los Angeles County Bicycle Coalition board member and president for 7.5 years. I'd like to respond specifically to an earlier comment that had a reference to connote that a homeowner might not be interested in supporting the bike plan. As a homeowner, I object to that. We would support the bike plan. I want to talk specifically about what the strategy is for the city of Glendale. If the strategy is to be a successful city, to be the jewel city that is located at the crux of the San Fernando Valley between the San Rafael Hills, San Gabriel Mountains, and the Hollywood Hills, then what are you going to do? You have to implement a plan to make that strategy work, okay? So, what were any of you doing in 2012? Do any of you remember what were you doing in 2012? A bike plan was done, and very few things are actually implemented in that bike plan. But then meanwhile, life has moved forward incredibly fast. Uber didn't exist in 2012, now it's everywhere. People are driving cars that are faster and louder. The number one issue people talk about when they try to move to Glendale is, well, people are pretty bad drivers here. The cars are really loud. People drive really fast. If the strategy of the city of Glendale is to improve living conditions, we need to act proactively to implement plans which execute on that strategy. This is the bike plan. The bike plan is the keystone to a strategic success for the city of Glendale. If we look at who actually uses the bike lanes, it'll be people who commute, it'll be people who are residents here, and it'll be people who are coming in to work in the city of Glendale, because it is, again, at the crux of the San Fernando Valley. If you talk to people on the Economic Development Council or Economic Development Department, as you have here, they're interested in bringing in larger tech companies into our downtown Glendale area. They're competing with cities like Santa Monica and Culver City. The reason those companies want to move there is because those areas are more interesting for potential employees. Why? Because they're bikeable. They're commutable. They don't have to drive a car to get anywhere. They don't have to do long commutes. They can actually live in the denser parts of the city and work and do well. So with this bike plan, if you actually implement it and get it done, not in 20 years, but 5, it's reasonable. You can get it done. You can actually start bringing in companies and business and everything that makes the city thrive. Thank you.
Next speaker is Paul Rabinoff.
Happy New Year and good evening, Mayor Brotman, council members, and staff. I want to support wholeheartedly the plan that has been put together through a lot of outreach, as Mr. Frommer has indicated. I totally support it. I want to say that we could be a little more aspirational than we are. It's been spoken about previously. I'll be really brief about this. Public Works has had input in it. I don't mean to beat up Public Works, but they did look at some of the proposals for some of the high crash streets and kind of downgraded, made them into study areas, those sorts of things. We need to look at where the city is going to be 20 years from now. I'm going to be 86 years old. So this really isn't going to affect me per se. I don't know that I'll be able to be on my bike at that point. I hope I am. But for younger generations, people that will be riding more and looking for alternative ways to get around. So I think it's very important that we maintain as aspirational a plan as we possibly can, put as much into it as we can, thinking about where we will all be in 20 years, where we'd like to see the city be in 20 years. And then, as was also mentioned, let's come up with a way to get this implemented in a streamlined fashion as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Cockler.
Evening, everyone. Yeah, so I was really impressed with this wonderful bike plan, and I can't wait for it to be implemented. I'm a Glendale South resident with my daughter, and we, when I was young, I really bicycled a lot, and I know, and I'm talking about something completely different as an educator, as a teacher. It's so important for mental health for students to ride bikes. It's also good for adults of all ages. It's better for our physical health and mental health. And any implementation will support also our energy goals, like bringing down the pollution and making people more in tune with their nature and with nature around them, which will draw people to spend more time at a restaurant, outside. It will be so good for the community when people, and especially children, see adult role models using their bikes, going to work or go to the park together. Riding the bike is something so natural for children to do, and this city could really be everything we need it to be if we had this implemented fast. There are now in San Francisco and in various other cities, they have bike buses where they actually stop their school bus, and in the summer months when it's possible, the teachers pick up hordes and hordes of kids from neighborhoods and they together ride to the school, and their parents along with them. So it's so inspiring to see like 125 kids riding to school in the morning, and I think that Glendale should be right there, and Glendale is a very proud city, and rightfully so, because of you, the council, and the staff of the city. You do such great work here. So I can just see this as the vision, and you can do it if you follow the plan. Thank you so much, everyone.
Actually, I have news for you, lady. This city is not safe for driving, for bicycling. I don't think so. Sometimes I want to talk to my people. I want to talk to the public. What I'm supposed to do? Yeah, because I want other people listen to. Yeah, but one of my goals is not only talking to the council. I want to talk to people too. Anyway, yeah, this city is not safe to drive bike. I don't know what are your plans for outreach, but yeah, downtown Glendale. Yeah, actually, I as a driver, I'm scared of bicyclists because there's a big liability for us. And yeah, with the fact that people are not, this is very bad drivers in this city. See, people like drive like city of Tehran. I'm from Tehran. They're real bad drivers. They still think that they're driving in the city of Tehran or city of Yerevan. So basically, it's not safe. That plan is not safe, and I don't think that we have to have bike lines in larger street, wider street, and especially in downtown. This is crazy. I'm scared. I'm scared of bicyclists. They're the big liability for us. Maybe we want to take them to outskirts of Glendale. Maybe to the more less dense areas. Yeah, that is what I suggest. And yeah, what? Well, you want to compare yourself with the city of Amsterdam? Where the people are more educated, more civilized? be my guest. Thank you.
Yes, we have 4 callers. Our first caller is Edward Gonzalez. Edward, you're on air. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Edward Gonzalez. Thank you, Honorable City Council and Mayor, for taking my comments this evening. As a father of a 1-year-old son and husband to a wife who loves to bike but can't find the opportunities to, I welcome the openness and the ambition of the bike plan. As somebody who lives in the La Crescenta area and would love to take more advantage of the amenities in the city of Glendale, I do sometimes feel isolated from the city and not being able to connect to all the amenities in the city. And when I look at my son, he's just old enough now to sit safely in a bike seat on my cargo e-bike. And when I ride him around and I look at his face and hear his laughing as I bike around the neighborhood, at least where it's safe to, I can't help but imagine that, how amazing would it be if he could carry that joy throughout the rest of his life as we go to places like the farmer's market, to the grocery store, and go out to dinner on Honolulu. That joy I would love for my son to experience before he gets to be college age in 20 years. And I would love for my wife to join us and join us safely, because right now she doesn't feel safe riding in the city of Glendale. And we barely feel safe driving him or biking him, to the areas where his schools may be. So having a bike plan that is ambitious is great, but a bike plan that gets implemented safely and with all the appropriate input is most important. A 5-year timeline would put him squarely in the age where he could happily bike to kindergarten. So I would love to see this plan implemented safely, quickly, and share the joy that I see on his face every time I take him on the bike. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next caller is Julia Kobe. Julia, you're on air. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, and thank you for your time tonight. My experience is actually very similar to this previous caller. I'm a resident of Verdugo City in Glendale, and I'm calling to support the bike plan that is safe for all ages. I urge the council and all those working on the plan to quickly implement bike lanes and paths that are connected, off-street, and protected. I also bike with my young son frequently down to downtown Montrose, to the farmers market, to Montrose Park, almost multiple times a week. And I encounter so many parents and people who are admiring my cargo e-bike that they wish they could bike their own children, but they just don't feel safe doing so. They honestly think I'm a bit crazy for biking with the way things are now. And sometimes, I think I am too. But I am optimistic that this plan, specifically, I would love to see a protected bike lane on Honolulu just to connect all those great places and schools and things that people are walking to up in northern Glendale. And also the multi-use path of the Verdugo Watch, which I do live right next to. And I believe that all of these things will create a safer, cleaner, and more family-friendly future for Glendale. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next caller is Paul Berlzheimer. Paul, you're on air. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Brotman and council members. I'm Paul Berlsheimer. I'm a longtime resident and homeowner and parent in Glendale. I'm very happy to see this bicycle transportation plan moving forward, and I thank you all for the progress so far. I think it's going to be a huge improvement in our city. I am concerned, however, that the current Public Works report is calling for study corridors that may delay implementation of parts of the plan. We know already from the experiences of cities around the world that building comprehensive active transportation networks and pedestrian-friendly infrastructure improves quality of life, reduces carbon emissions and other pollution, reduces noise pollution, increases foot traffic for local businesses, and most of all, reduces all types of car crashes, and therefore saves lives. Rather than doing more studies on current traffic conditions, we should decide what we want those conditions to be and work towards creating them as quickly as we can. Any time and resources spent on the former, on more studies and more analysis, could instead be spent on making the actual changes that we need. Please avoid anything that will delay real implementation of the bicycle plan. One other specific thing that I would like to call for is for Glendale Boulevard to be in the early stages of implementation rather than in the future focus. Thank you and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Our final caller is Matthew Taylor. Matthew, you're on air. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, Mayor Brotman and Glendale City Council. I'm a proud resident of Glendale, and I consider myself a bike commuter. I try to bike as much as possible. And I'm very, very excited to see the new biking master plan implemented. I would like it to be implemented considerably, faster than the 2012 plan. And I support what previous callers have said about removing the future focus corridors and going with lane reconfiguration guidelines to help implement those faster. Looking at the map that was posted as part of the plan, I am concerned about the connectivity of the east-west bike lanes in downtown. They don't seem to reach all the way across, or they stop short. They should go all the way across the city instead of stopping and starting and making a disconnected network. I also saw that the plan is calling for bike boxes. If at all possible, I would prefer to see Dutch-style, intersections that actually protect bicyclists at intersections instead of bike boxes, and that kind of dovetails with how a lot of bike lanes that you see, which are just paint, intersect with right turn lanes and right turn pockets. They should not cross through any car lanes. They should go straight through, and the car should have to go around the protected intersection instead of through the bicycle lane. Additionally, I'd like to say that it's just kind of common sense to me that all of our major arterials should have Class 4 protected bike lanes, and bus lanes along with them. To discourage fast driving. And in conjunction with that, the residential grid in downtown should all be bike boulevards with modal filters and raised crosswalks to encourage biking and local driving instead of car through trips. So instead of, driving through residential streets super fast, these design changes would force them onto the arterials and the highways, which we have plenty of. And I think that, we should build for the traffic we want. We should encourage, we're in a climate crisis. We should be encouraging as much biking and taking transit as possible instead of, building for the possibility of more cars. We should be encouraging more people to bike and take transit. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all.
Start with, sorry about that. Yeah. I was saying that there are 2 people I failed to call. So we'll start with Eli Lester, and then we have Cole Bazemore, and again, apologies for that.
Evening, Mayor Brotman and council members. I just wanted to, my name is Eli Lester. I'm on the Transportation and Parking Commission, and I also served in the PDT. But I just wanted to speak a little for myself on this occasion. This is the beginning of a process that I think is going to be really important for Glendale. And a lot of what needs to be said, I feel, has been said in the supportive comments that you've heard But I think I can add just a little bit of just to zoom out a little bit, like to talk and a way to think about this process going forward is where does biking fit in this city, in the strategy for the city going forward? So I think that mainly I see it as it's basically broadening the mode share for the city. In the future, there's basically a static limit to how much you can widen streets. So the streets that we've had parkways cut, we've had sidewalks narrowed to add travel lanes for cars. And it's basically come to a point where that can't be done very much more. So as traffic increases, what is needed is to basically broaden the mode share, have people get around the city in other ways so they can still move around. And this is a chance for the city to do a better job of making these other modes more appealing. I think like Glendale has a special advantage. A lot of this was covered, but basically just the city was laid out before driving was sort of adopted by the masses in the early 20s. So a lot of the destinations that are practical are actually within walking distance, or if not, biking distance for sure. So that's where biking fits. It's between the walk and the drive. The idea here is to create options to invite the public to do this. So I just want to encourage this process. I'd like to second the comments about streamlining the process so that my kids can enjoy this before they've moved away or are driving. So thank you, and I just want to really encourage this plan and this process, and thanks very much.
Thank you. And our last speaker is Cole Bazemore.
Good evening, Mayor Brotman, council members and staff. I'll be brief. I think my points that I want to make, my point I want to make is really the safety imperative. Something I was thinking about during some of the comments were, as we move into the future with electrification, we're seeing cars become actually heavier and bigger. As we all know, SUVs are one of the most common cars sold on the market today. And for pedestrians and bicyclists, they are lethal. Heavy EVs mean that you're gonna just get, anyways, you're gonna get plowed over. So for me as a bicyclist user, I am someone who does like to go to the grocery store. I love to, get up to the parks, move around the city, go to the libraries. I really want to see more dedicated space on the road for users like myself. I think I hope to, settle down in Glendale, raise a family here. Love to get my kids on the road too. And if we can just make a little more space on the road for folks like me, I think that would go a long ways. I agree with a lot of the other comments on streamlining the process, creating guidelines for ways in which we can get some of these projects implemented more quickly without jumping through all the hoops that might be presented through Public Works. And so I just, again, I really am impressed with the map that's been put together by our consultants. And I think there's a lot of opportunity here for creating a really robust, fully realized bicycle network in this city. So please, I guess one thing I wanted to mention too is the pilot or the sort of like quick build projects like we're seeing with North Brand, I think are a great option for getting some of these out more quickly. And I think if council is, debating whether or not a project should go ahead or not, you don't have to go, fully commit to something and build it out permanently. You could try these quick builds and see how they go. So I think North Brand is going to be a good example of something that we could use in other places in the city. So anyways, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, appreciate everybody that's come and shared their thoughts. Just a housekeeping item, yes?
Go ahead.
I was going to have a housekeeping item because now there are four of us. So I mean, bathroom breaks, we're human up here. Can one of
Mayor,
us
Councilmember Najarian is not on the call.
He's not on the call. So, okay, so in that case,
Maybe take a break.
we're gonna recess for 5 minutes so that we can refresh here on the dais. We will be back and we will complete the discussion on this item. So back at 8:26. Okay, we are back to continue the discussion on the bicycle transportation plan. Let's have, Mr. Galanian wants to clarify something, so.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as a reminder, this item was for information. It was an update on the progress of the project. As such, we'll take feedback from council, but will not be able to take direction. There'll be other opportunities for council to provide direction in the future.
Okay. So feedback. Who would like to go first? Councilmember Asatryan? And we can combine questions and comments.
Yeah. I don't have any questions. I'll just make some of my comments. I'm very happy with this plan. It's very thorough. I will say that I share in the concerns of the speakers that came. You know, everyone knows I don't know how to ride a bike, but at this point, every time like some bike item comes up or bike lanes come up, but I will say that my dad is an avid biker, and I know that when my mom and my sister got wind of the fact that he was taking my nephews biking around Glendale, we had to have a family discussion about that because we don't feel like it's safe to do that. And I think if we don't build the infrastructure around that, families are going to continue facing that issue. I would say that I'm very happy with all of the recommendations that are included in this report. Just some thoughts I have on the stakeholder outreach for the future. I noticed that you are using either specific events that you host for the bicycle plan or city events. I would encourage that you also look at the wider community calendar. There are a lot of wonderful community festivals that are hosted by different nonprofit groups and organizations around the city. You know, I would definitely encourage that we need to be where the community's at and not just city-sponsored events. Some of them that kind of come to mind is, for example, the Vartavar Festival that had thousands of people that were present, targets the Armenian community. We have fantastic events now hosted by our Montrose Parks Association and Chamber up on Honolulu, having, I think it was like Oktoberfest would be one that had thousands of people there. And so just kind of being creative. Our Filipino business, FABAC, hosts a lot of events celebrating their culture. So just being present at these very different, and you know, of course, the same goes for the Glendale Latino Association. So I think that's how we kind of target the different demographics beyond what I'm seeing here. I would be very much interested in more of a streamlined implementation for this, and looking at the guidelines that were given instead of the study corridors. I share in the concerns that we have all these plans, and this is not specific to the bicycle plan. We have all these plans that sit there for years and it takes forever to implement, and then we have to come up with a new plan because the old plan is outdated. And so how do we get there quicker? And I think it's been the direction of this council to look at how we're just streamlining things all together in the city, and this falls into that. And I think that's, and then I don't know how you're coordinating with the schools, but I think it would be great to do some outreach on this with the schools and create a partnership. It's such an easy way to have something, and I don't know if they still have Thursday folders. They still have Thursday folders? Okay, yeah, you know, it's just digital. Okay, so I mean, just coordinating, getting some of this material into the inboxes of parents and families and having their feedback as well. But thank you again.
Thank you. Councilmember Kasakian.
So I grew up riding my bike in Glendale. I learned how to ride a bike in Glendale when we used to live on Cedar, just a few blocks from here. And unfortunately, I would think not just twice, 3 times, perhaps, if not more, to ride my bike around Glendale today. In fact, my son just learned how to ride a bike in the last month, and he is taken to it enthusiastically. In fact, I think you ran into him when he was just learning how to ride in a empty parking lot. But again, every time he takes his bike and he rides on the sidewalks around our neighborhood, there's a part of me that is filled with concern for his safety, and I think that's prevalent across the city, and we have to do our best to change that feeling among our residents, among our families and bicyclists, to try and have a safer city for biking. But I want to touch upon a couple of things. One of the things that Councilmember Asatryan said that I'd like to also echo, I think the outreach is fine. 1,000 people, some can say it's not enough if for a city of our size. You know, some can say that it's just fine. You know, they do presidential polls with and political polls with 1,000 people. The key is for it to be representative of the community, for it to be reflective of the community. So it's fine if you're doing these events, but if people are self-selecting to be at these events, they're going to be people who have, you know, an interest in the topics that are being discussed. I would be more interested in finding out, you know, why, you know, when we do when there are political polls done, you're talking to voters, but, you know, why are people who don't vote not voting, right? Similarly with biking. If you want people to find out what it's going to take them to bike, aside from the bicyclists, with all due respect to our walk bike friends, go to the folks who aren't biking and find out why they're not biking. I know for myself, you know, I will walk to the local market or bodega just a block away from my house if I need to buy produce. But if I need to buy something else and I need to go to the Trader Joe's, which is about half a mile away, I'll use my car because I don't feel safe. I don't feel I'm an experienced bicyclist. I don't feel safe getting on a bike and taking that a longer trip on Glen Oaks, which is close to where we live. It's a major artery. So looking at like our major employment centers, looking at the downtown, go into the buildings, talk to the major employers, find out how many of their employees live in Glendale. If we can talk to those employees who actually live in Glendale, find out what part of Glendale they live in and what is preventing them from, you know, taking those shorter trips. I don't think that would be that hard to do, and I think you could get a lot of interesting information from it. Again, I do think that we need to make the city safer for pedestrians and bicyclists. I think that one of the ways is to be really, you know, I've been listening, I listened to a radio program where they were talking about New Year's resolutions, and they said they use the acronym SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, right? So I think that whatever approach we take to implementing this plan in next year, so we're not having the same discussions and frustrations as we've heard tonight, we need to be smart. Again, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And in that regard, just based on the presentation, which was a very good presentation, the ideal place to focus our resources and efforts is in that 1, 2, 3 zone, the south flat part of the city. You know, at one point when I first was elected, we had this conversation about having a shared bike program, and then the idea just died on the vine. I think one of the companies was Aniv or someone we were looking at. You know, I think that's something to revisit and look at how we can have more bike usage in the downtown area versus overreaching and extending ourselves. You know, make it work where it can work. Let's build it and people will come, and then afterwards we can worry about taking on more than we envision. And I understand that may not be where all bicycle enthusiasts will be, but I've said this before. I think that if we can show that it can work in certain places over time, perhaps it can grow to other areas, but focus on the areas where we know it will work now. Again, be specific, measurable, achievable is the key. So that would be my suggestion, to bite off what we can chew, to make it work where it can. And I would like to see, you know, shared bike programs in the downtown to encourage people who don't have bikes to use them. And some of the shared bike programs have electric and pedal assist biking features as well. I think that will create the kind of enthusiasm that we need to make Glendale a more bike-friendly city. And lastly, one thing that I thought we had talked about during COVID, and I thought we had suspended perhaps enforcement of it, was we do allow bicycling on sidewalks, or do we not? I don't know who's here who can answer that, but
Apologies. The municipal code, to my recollection, prohibits bicycling, skateboarding, whatnot on sidewalks in business commercial districts. However, that's defined in our municipal code. And I can't remember if we suspended it during COVID or not.
I think we may have, because there was more people trying to recreate outdoors and go and ride their bikes.
That's right, but that went away, obviously, when the COVID order went away.
But I think that what we ought to do is revisit that and make it safer, because the sidewalk is really the safest place for someone who's just out there trying to get, back into it to ride. It's much safer than riding on the street. And it's where a lot of people, I think, first learn how to ride a bike. You don't send your kids out onto the street bicycling. You have them ride on the sidewalks. And I remember riding our bikes to the Galleria, to the Eagle Rock Plaza, and I think that's what we ought to do. So I would support that as well. And then some of the other small features like bike boxes at intersections, I think those are fine, but I don't know if that's really going to get us to where we need to. I would like us to focus on places like Glen Oaks Boulevard and making sure that we have very robust designated separated bike lanes there. One of the most successful bike lanes or bike pathways in all of LA County, I think, is the Chandler Bike Path in Burbank that goes all the way to Los Angeles. And the reason for that is because it's clearly separated. Families, pedestrians, everyone can feel absolutely safe. If on Glen Oaks Boulevard you can have that somewhere, either closer to the median, the green median, which used to be the original pathway of the red line, or elsewhere, I think then you can have more people feeling comfortable to ride their bikes versus fighting traffic and fighting for their safety. Those are just some of my thoughts, and I appreciate staff's time. And again, just, reach out. I know that there was a representative here from one of the groups, the Verdugo Wash Group. Okay. Include them. Even if they may not agree with everything that is presented or they have concerns, I think it's important for every voice to be heard and everyone to have a seat at the table. And I think you'd be surprised. I think there'd be a lot of things that they would probably agree on. I think that their interests are ultimately for the safety of our community at their heart. So thank you.
Okay. So I'm really pleased that we're finally seeing something come to fruition, because it's been mentioned many times. The current bike plan was adopted in 2012. I think it was developed in 2010. That's 12, 13 years. And in 12 or 13 years, some very major changes have taken place. One of them is awareness of the critical need to reduce motor vehicle travel, which means replacing short distance trips to the extent we can with alternative ways of getting around, such as public transit, walking, and biking. This was not as top of mind 10 to 12 years ago as it is now, but it's something that we absolutely must do for many reasons. Another thing that's changed, has been mentioned before, is the size and weight of vehicles. I think we all see a lot more SUVs. They're big, they're heavy. If you get hit by them, you have very little chance of walking away unscathed, especially if they're going fast. So the environment that people ride in is a lot more dangerous than it once was. And the other major change is the emergence of e-bikes, which has been mentioned by some of the members of the public. I ride an e-bike, as many of you know. I ride as a commuter. I ride to get to work. I rode today to come here. I'll ride home. I ride to do my shopping. Pretty much everything I can do on the bike, I do on the bike. And an e-bike is really a game changer. It just is going to open up this possibility to so many people that would not be able to handle the hills in the city or even the flats on a regular bike. So these are big changes. And I want to make one point clear, is that this is not about recreational riding. I hear a lot of people kind of think that this is about these bike enthusiasts who just want to ride around in their tights for sport. That's not what we're about here. What we're about are what are often called utilitarian bike riders, people like me who are riding to get from point A to point B, commuting to work, to school, doing errands, visiting friends and family, by making it safer than it is today. That's what we're about. I also, I want to get past this narrative that I hear that we don't need bike lanes because no one bikes, right? And we've heard this many times. No one bikes. Well, first of all, it's not true that no one bikes. A lot of people do bike. But we don't have the volume of people going around by bike as we should, because people don't feel safe, or they don't feel like fighting infrastructure that's designed for cars and only for cars. And an example which I've brought up here many times is when I'm riding and I get to a traffic light that doesn't have a bike detection system, as I think you mentioned. I'm sitting there and I have, few good choices, right? I can run the red light, I can get off my bike and push the button, or I can wait until a car happens to come up and trigger the signal, right? Most people don't think about this, but these are the slings and arrows that cause a lot of people not to ride that otherwise would love to ride. So these are things we need to work on. Now, hold on a second, looking back at my notes. The other thing I heard somebody mention, and I think it's really important, is that this is a generational issue. We're building the city for the people that in many cases are not even born yet. We talk about outreach. We want to hear from the residents today. How do we hear from the residents that are not here yet, or the ones that are 5 and 10 years old, right? These are the people that are going to be inheriting our city. These are the people that we have to build the city for, and these people want a different mode of living. They want to live in dense urban areas. Of course, I'm generalizing, but there are many more that want to live in an urban area and they want to get around in a healthy way on a bike, not generating greenhouse gas emissions. And so those are the people also we have to think about, not just the people who are sitting here, not just the people that may be responding to a survey, but all these people that don't have voices. That's our job, is to give them voices. Those are kind of my general comments. Now, on the specifics, I like the way we've done the map, the integrated system, the great connectivity. I do agree with the letter we got from Walk Bike Glendale. And by the way, did you get that letter? You got that letter,
Yes,
okay.
Mayor, I did.
My feedback would be that we, and I'm gonna pull it up here, but we basically fold those future consideration or study corridor segments back into the main plan. Of course, when we actually get to working on these segments, we're going to do the engineering analysis, and we'll have to decide where the low-hanging fruit is. We'll have to decide ultimately if something is not viable because the delays are unacceptable. So we'll get to that, but I don't want to start off saying this is out in the future. I think in one instance, I think Brand was indicated as a study corridor in 2012, and it's 10 years later, and now we're going to call it a study corridor again. So I think that's not on. We need to have all these, and in particular, Glendale Avenue, the plan takes us down to the 134 coming from the north, takes us down to the 134, and then it stops. Like, what are we supposed to do, right? I think Colorado goes west to some point, I forget exactly where, and it just stops. And Brand comes from, we've got the North Brand Quick Build project, it goes to Glen Oaks, and then it just stops. There's nothing going south. And these have been indicated as our high crash corridors too, and they're where people want to be biking because that's where the destinations are. So I really strongly feel that we should include those. And the second point that we heard from Walk Bike Glendale, their second recommendation, which I think both of my colleagues have mentioned already, so I'll just say it again, is to adopt this lane reconfiguration guideline as part of the plan. And I think we have an example of LA, and it's not that we want to do everything like LA, but we can use this concept to develop our own set of guidelines so that places where there really is going to be very little impact on delay, like the La Crescenta Avenue, right? We know from our studies that it has an insignificant impact on vehicle delay. Those places should not take 4 years. Those places should not take round after round of public outreach. Those should be streamlined. You know, the ones where we're going to have potentially a lot of impact on driving times, those are going to take some more effort and more time. So let's set up that framework so it's not arbitrary. It's not just somebody in Public Works or elsewhere saying, I want to do it this way for this project, I want to do it that way for that project. It should be based on a formula that we've established. So those are my main comments. On the policy side, I just wanted to mention, I'm almost done. Yeah, like the sidewalk riding, I think as appropriate. I mean, I think we should allow sidewalk riding, and I think we should explain, make sure people understand that you still can't ride recklessly on a sidewalk. Even if you allow sidewalk riding, you can still get ticketed if you're riding recklessly. So we're not talking about people zooming down sidewalks and knocking people over. Bike parking is very key because I go all over the place, and one of my big problems is I have nowhere to lock my bike safely. And these e-bikes are thousands of dollars. You know, you need a safe place to lock your bike. So there's sometimes these bike cages and various things that we might have. Bike detection, I already mentioned. Right on red, I think at certain intersections, it may be appropriate as a safety feature to limit right on red. And then reducing speed limits citywide, which is something now we have a lot more tools that allow us to reduce speed limits because that in and of itself makes it safer. I would also say to Councilmember Kasakian's point, I understand that the bike share pilot is slated to come in February.
Tentatively February 6th.
Tentatively February 6th. So that is coming back, which is really good. Bike safety education and just general like promoting of the benefits of biking, I think does need to be part of this because people do need to learn. You know, I'm an experienced bike commuter. I've been doing it for decades. But, you know, I see a lot of people riding very recklessly and not visible, no lights, running through stop signs without even looking. I mean, so we do have to educate people as to, you know, the appropriate ways to ride safely for themselves and for everybody else. So those are all my comments. And unless there's anything more, I think Councilmember Asatrian has a question.
Since we're not supposed to be giving direction, but we're only giving feedback, specifically as it pertains to creating a guideline or having staff bring a report on guidelines versus what we have in place now, does that need to be a separate motion to be agendized for us to request that? Or is that going to be, because you're technically not taking direction from us, so I don't want it to be that 6 months later you come back and say, well, you guys didn't ask for it. We weren't taking direction, we just gave feedback. So what do you need in order for us to actually look at that within Public Works?
Mayor and council members, actually a principal mobility planner here, Fred Zoravon, brought up a good point. We're coming back with the circulation element on January 30th. That may actually be a good time to take up this discussion a little bit more broad. As we heard earlier, it's not just the implementation of the bike plan, it's also the PED plan. This lane reconfiguration kind of policy standards thresholds does not have to just be for bicycle implementation. It can also be for the PED plan. So my recommendation, we would bring that back and discuss that broader on January 30th.
Okay.
Oh, I do have one other question because what Councilmember Asatrian said about the schools really I thought was important. Do we have GUSD participation in our project development team?
We did do an outreach meeting with youth. Well, we also do typically get engaged when it comes to the bike walk to school days as well. We did not have a specific youth member on that though.
Okay, I would suggest we did?
We did have a member from the school board on the PDT. We do.
Oh,
we do.
From the school board?
Yeah, not a student, but a school board member.
One of the school board members?
From the GUSD.
Okay, well, we don't have to resolve it here, but I think, I agree that they're a critical, player in all this, right? Everything we talk about, the youth and biking to school and all that, and, we should make sure that they're brought into this conversation. And I'd say the same about the community college.
I mean, and I'm not just looking for somebody on a committee.
I know,
Yeah,
yeah. You're
just-
talking about two things.
Yeah, because sometimes that information just stays with that person or goes to 5 people.
That's
It doesn't go to the rest, so, okay.
That's true. Okay. Very good. So I think there's no vote to be taken.
Nope.
Okay, so we'll just, good discussion. We'll just move on to our next item, which I think
Thank you again.
is oral communication, right?
Thank you.
Actually,
Or no?
No business item.
Oh, we have a new
we
business.
also have a discussion of council member future agenda requests.
Right. Okay.
So where are we on the agenda? Should we
So
read this?
Councilmember Asatrian's request for a report on a Persons with Disabilities Advisory Committee.
I mean, I would support discussion on
Okay.
that, or
Want to just, maybe
Well-
just very briefly say what,
So I'm actually, I would like to agendize this item, but I would like for us to take a look at different models other cities have in addressing issues with disabilities. I'm not suggesting that it be a commission. I would like to see a report of what other cities have. Commission can be one of those things, but, I think we have a large segment that's missing out on giving their opinion. And I feel like, I don't know what's happening out there. If you want, I can go on about this, but
We just need to take a vote if
Okay.
if you don't have any
if you don't-
questions.
I just want to make sure, just a little bit clear understanding of what it is.
sorry, people kept coming
Yeah,
in and out and it was
distracting.
distracting. Okay. I'm interested in looking at how we fold in the opinions of people with disabilities. And that includes obviously people that have needs with mental disabilities and physical. I think I've time and again talked about how this is an issue that's very near and dear to my heart. And recognizing that I had somebody very dear and close to me who I saw on a daily basis how our world is really not created for that. And so whether it's an ad hoc, but not temporary, but it's ongoing, whether it's a commission, whatever it may be, that advises us on both infrastructure changes and needs as well as programming for people with disabilities.
Okay, so let's take a roll call, or there,
A motion and second?
I'll second.
okay, I'll move it. Oh, no, I can't move, you have to move.
I'll move it.
Yeah,
He
He
seconded.
seconded it, okay.
Council members Asadrian,
Yes.
Divine, Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian, Mayor Brotman.
Yes. Very good, okay.
Next is oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Council may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The city manager may refer the matter to the appropriate department for investigation and report.
Okay, now do we have anyone on the phone?
No callers at the moment.
Okay, so I have 2 cards from people that left, so I think maybe it's a mix-up. Patrick Murphy and Alec Bartrosu. Okay, so we have 3. Okay. Oh, Alec is back. Okay. All right, well, let's start with Tamara Movsesian. And is she doing translation?
I don't know. she
We do
didn't
have a
request it.
translator if anyone
You
wishes.
need translation?
I don't know. Maybe
Well, if you-
translate.
We do have somebody here.
So
I won't understand you if you don't have
For
translation.
your benefit, Mayor.
Yeah, I would
since we
like
have someone
translation
on.
for my benefit.
Ինչպես հա բայց դու արևմտահայերեն ես խոսում հիմա ես քեզ պետք է հասկանամ հետո դու ինձ պետք է հասկանաս որ դու թարգման ես տղա ջան կներես
Անհոգ մնացեք ես գնում թարգմանեմ
հաջա
ես գնում թարգմանեմ
Կարող ես տեղը։ Ես դադի դասեցի այս 3 րոպեվա խոսելու համար, ասма չեմ փոխելու, բայց չի հասկանում, 2 ամիս հետո էլ ինքը չի լինելու, մյուս սիթի բերը կփոխի, իսկ իրան մյուս անգամ էլ չեն ընտրի City Council member.
Last time I told Mayor Brotman to change this 3 minutes talk. He didn't change it. Whether he will change it now in the future, someone else is going to come in his place, and we're going to vote someone else, and they might not change it, or they might change it.
Ճիշտ հարբարեց։ Չէ։ Լավ, ոչինչ։ Okay, հիմի էլե ջան, հիմի քեզ համար եմ բան ասելու։
Okay, համեցեք։
Ջանով եմ խոսում, որտեվ ես քեզ բարին եմ կապենում։
Ես էլ ձեզ։
Ուղղակի առանձին չեմ հանդիպում, որ բմբլեմ առանձին։ Եղավ։ Դու այսօր ցույց տվեցիր, որ աճել ես արդեն, բայց այս 2 տարվա ընթացքում դու դեռ ոչ մի օգուտ չես տվել Գլենդելի բնակիչներին։ Դրա համար, այդ որ դու ուզում ես գնաս Լորա Ֆրեդմանի տեղը, մի քիչ շուտ է, ով որ քեզ խորհուրդ ա տվել, քեզ լավը չի կամենում, որովհետև ինձանից բացի ուրիշները շատ կոպիտ քեզ քննադատեն։ Ծնողի պարտականությունը այդ է, որ երեխու սովորացնի, որ իր մահից հետո ինքը ավելի լավ ապրի, ոչ թե սենց պահի, որ իր մեռնելուց հետո երեխան շշկրի, չիմանա ոնց ապրի։ Եղավ, ես ոնց որ մայր եմ քեզ կամենում, ոչ թե թշնամի։
Ես
ոչ մեկի նկատմամբ թշնամություն չունեմ, բայց չեմ կարա չխոսամ։ Ես իմ երեխուս վրա եմ խոսում, եթե պետք է, ասում եմ, բայց ինքը ուրիշ դաստիարակություն է ստացել։ Ինքը մտածում է, եթե ես սխալ եմ, ասում է սխալ ես, ես ասում եմ կներես, որ սխալ եմ։ Ես ներողություն խնդրել եմ գիտեմ, երբ որ սխալ եմ լինում։ Այն մարդը, ով հիմար է, նա չի ասում կներես։ Եթե մի քիչ հլա մարազմի մեջ չես ընգե, իշկան է պարաբլես, եթե դու սխալ ես, պետք է ասես կներես։ Հիմի ես քեզ խորհուրդ եմ տալիս, մի գնա առաջ։ Հա, եղավ, ես էլ չեմ ուզում օպերայի բան ասեմ, որ դու Լոս Անջելեսի համար քեզ խորհուրդ տվեցին պայմանագիր կնքես, այն հիմար մարդիկ, որ չգիտեն, որ 70-80-ական թվականներին Հայաստանի օպերան Լասկալայի օպերայի հետ պայմանագիր ուներ։ Հայաստանի օպերա գալիս էին այս ձայներ, ոնց որ Լիլին, Ալբերտոն, Լուսին Ամարան, երբ որ երգում էր Աիդայի պարտիան, այդ չգիտեմ ինչ էր, չգիտեմ մամա եղել է այդ համերգին, թե օպերային, թե չէ։ Եթե եղել է ինքը կհիշի, վեհապարներ կար։ Դա մի չքնաղ բան էր։ Ես քեզ խորհուրդ կտամ, եթե մամաթլա չի բանար է ասել, այդա կինոն նայես, կիմանաս ով ա դերը կատարում, ով ա երգում ա Լուսին Ամարան։ Դա քեզ ահագին մեծ հաճույք կպատճառի։ Եղավ, ու սրանից հետո աշխատի, մարդկանց մասին մտածես, քեզ որ գնացել էր senior citizen-ների շետ, ահագին բան բողոքներ հայտնեցին, ճիշտ է, ցույց տվեցին, ոչ մի բան չի փոխվել, բալես, ոչ մի բան, մինչև այսօր ընդեղ ռեմոնտ են անում, ռեմոնտից հետո մրջուններն է վխտում են այդ բիլդինգում, իսկ մինչև ռեմոնտը, մրջուն չկար այդ շենքում, եղավ, Նենց արա, որ հաջորդ անգամ վերընտրության ժամանակ քեզ Գլենդելի բնակիչները ընտրեն ու հպարտությամբ ընտրեն, որ դու աճել ես ու իրանց օգուտ ես տվել։ Ոչ թե ասել ես I don't care։ I don't care թարգմանում է շատ կոպիտ, թքած ունեմ։ Ինձ տենց են ասել համենայն դեպս։ Դա շատ կոպիտ բան է։ Հետո էլ ստեղ որ Սուտ են ասում, սուտն էլ հանգարտ մի քանի օր անցնում է, որտեվ մի կես ժամում սուտը բռնվում է, ինտերնետ կա, ասում են, yes-ը որն է, հիմար։
Okay.
I do have
Ես մի
one
քանի րոպե
question.
ունեմ դա։
Okay. Your time is
Եկատերինը
finished.
մեծ իջին, Անգլիայի թագուհին։ Հլա այն դարերում ասելա, եթե մենք կարողանանք 3 օր սուտը պահենք, դա մեծ բան կլինի։ Իսկ հիմի սուտը կես ժամ էլ չի լում պահել։ Եղավ։
Okay. Your time is up, Ms. Mosefsky.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. But you wanted to ask a question.
Yeah, I do have a question on the.
Հիմի թարգմանի թող հասկանա դանը։ Հարված օգուտ կտա իրան, հետագա կյանքում։
I had raised about the elderly building that I had visited, and for our staff to connect with the manager there on some of the issues that the residents had mentioned, even with the way that the renovations have taken place. Can we do a follow-up with staff and manager on that? Because I mean, really, some of those things included the ceiling, like the light switch being on the ceiling for the AC and so forth, which is kind of absurd.
We can, most certainly can. You had said that you had a list, Councilmember Sajian, that you were going to share with us, and I'm not sure if you still have that, but we can definitely make a contact and see where they're at.
Thanks.
Okay. Next speaker is Alan Durham. 5 minutes. And we won't be taking any more calls, is that?
Mayor Brotman, members of the council, I'm Alan Durham. Thank you for letting me speak. Councilmember Kasakian mentioned early in the comments section about the fatal auto accident on Glen Oaks over the holidays. And this is just my opinion, but I think speed had a lot to do with it. If anybody's seen the surveillance camera video of that accident, I don't think a BMW is going to spin out of control, fly across a landscape median, and crash and head on into a Toyota and totally demolish it if they're going 40 miles an hour or less on Glen Oaks. So my comment is I would like to request that city staff at an upcoming meeting soon would update us on the timing of the pilot project to install speed cameras in Glendale. I believe we're getting 9, but I don't know if we've gotten them, how long it will take to install, sort of what the timeline is, because the sooner the better, at least on Glen Oaks. And the bicycle plan's very impressive. I think some people may think it's a detriment, but it may be a benefit that will slow traffic on certain streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Ramela Iragi.
Yes, it's election times, election and re-election times. Yeah, there are candidates seeking re-election, or do you want to be elected as a council member here? And yeah, and here we go again. There is one of the main agendas are affordable housing. They yeah, their main focus is affordable housing. Yeah, but I would know that what are their real plans? You cannot just throw words out of your mouth, empty air, like empty air, like, oh, we're gonna focus on affordable housing. What are your plans? I want to know what are your plans are. Otherwise, there are all empty promises, and we need a real blueprint for that before you be elected. Otherwise, I don't think that's a good move on your behalf. So yeah, so we need a blueprint for you cannot rely on past things that you did as far as affordable housing. Yeah, which some of them is still there on a very parliamentary levels. They're still in foundation phase. And yeah, we need real plans. We're demanding that. Otherwise this just empty promises, and I don't think that's going to be it's going to be otherwise it's going to create another Pandora box that we don't know what is it. You just talking about affordable housing and this and that, but still we don't know what it is. I don't think that's a good move on your behalf, on the candidate that want to throw affordable housing agendas left and right. So basically, yes, we seriously demand that. We need to, what are your specific agendas, what are in details, and yeah, basically, we need a real blueprint for that.
Okay, Alec Bartrasuf. And it's about another subject, right?
Yes, I figured since I'm here, I wanted to broach the subject about street safety generally. I did hear about the incident on Glen Oaks. I also just recently saw a post from the police department about a Prius going 70 plus miles per hour on Glen Oaks. And I continue to see over the last several months social media posts about that type of excessive speeding on Glen Oaks. And Artie, as a friend, I will say that there's no amount of education that will stop that person from going 70 miles an hour on Glen Oaks. So we need to look at this as an infrastructure change if we want to take the safety of Glen Oaks seriously. There are very specific.
Could we stop his time for a second? This is distracting. And maybe take this conversation out of the room? Okay. Sorry for that. Okay, why don't you?
That's okay. So there are very specific treatments that I think we should include in our toolbox if we want to address speeding and safety on our streets. For Glen Oaks Boulevard, Rest in Red is a very specific signal treatment type that we can consider that would essentially have the lights on signal on Glen Oaks be red during off-peak hours that you think are appropriate, so that they're not default green for people to travel for miles without having to stop. The City of LA has incorporated speed tables into their kit of parts, which are essentially speed humps, but are appropriate for higher speed streets and multi-lane streets. Verdugo Road in the LA section has speed tables. Riverside, those are examples that are close to Glendale that you can see for yourself that work. You can reduce speed limits, which LA has also done near elementary schools to calm down traffic. But they're also putting in curb extensions with bollards that just cost a few $100s rather than these large capital infrastructure improvements that require many years of planning and many millions of dollars. And then I also wanted to talk about the recent pedestrian fatality that happened here at Glendale and Broadway. That happened because an EV was struck when another car was trying to turn left, and that car swerved into a pedestrian and killed them on the sidewalk. I recommend that intersection be looked at for a protected only left turn phasing, so that people can only turn left when the green arrow is on. A local example of doing that type of phasing is Western on Glen Oaks. I believe there was also a fatality there some years ago, and we changed that phasing so that you cannot turn left unless that green arrow is on. So these are very specific treatments that I think will make our streets safer. And then lastly, if we can pull up the photos that I had. I was going to mention this before, but I ran out of time. There seems to be this insinuation or this rhetoric that people who are advocating for bike lanes are people who do it recreationally, people that want to because they think it's fun, people who have the choice or option to bike because they think it's cool or it's the thing to do. But I just wanted to show some examples of who are these people that are biking on our streets. And mind you, this is without any bicycle infrastructure on our streets. So we have an older gentleman here on Duran that's riding. You can see he has no place to ride, so the driver that's trying to go around him is crossing over the yellow lines. Next slide. We have parents that are on bike trains. They're connecting with other parents and riding en masse to schools, and so you have kids on bikes. This photo on the right was taken on Brand Boulevard. This is right in front of the gym. These are people, I have no idea who they are, but these are people that are riding on Brand Boulevard. And mind you, if they're caught riding their bike on that sidewalk, they are gonna get a ticket, which I'm also hoping that we can change. Next slide. Just some more examples. The one on the right I took this morning at Harvey and Wilson. So you can imagine how treacherous that street is. Of course, she is riding her bike on the sidewalk because that's the only place where she feels safe. Next slide. And then you have, again, some other examples of people who are biking. I don't know who these people are, but I saw them. The one on the right is at the farmer's market. The one on the left is on Lexington, traveling towards Glendale Avenue. I just wanted to show you the people and the faces. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to tell Alec that, I think Gil Garcetti did a whole coffee table book on bicycles and photographs he took of them. You could have a future in publishing if you keep that up. But I do agree with what you're saying about Rest on Red on Glen Oaks and looking at all options on the table to slow it down. I did not know of that until you mentioned it. Growing up, I think that a lot of us who learned to drive in this city and were young drivers would try to see what speed we have to hit all the green lights on Glen Oaks, which creates a dangerous situation. I do think that it's worth looking at what you're suggesting to make the default be red to slow the traffic down so people have to go stop and then move when the light changes. So for whoever is listening, I know that Mr. Imrani's not here, but hopefully staff is taking notes on that. Thanks.
And can we memorialize some of these points and have staff look at some of the suggestions? I think one of them was the intersection here at Glendale and Broadway. The other one was this rest on red. You got both of those?
Yes, we do, Mayor.
I think there were two.
There's a number of recommendations. We can also go back and look at the tape and collect those.
Okay, please do. I want to, what's that? Public Works, yeah.
Yeah, that's one. We shared notes.
Some fits into our mobility planning as well,
Okay,
so there's a
okay.
lot of collaboration there.
Okay. Our last speaker is Greta Sargassian. Sargassian. My apologies.
Բարև ձեզ հարգելի քաղաքապետ։
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Բարև ձեզ հարգելի քաղաքապետարան։
Greeting council members.
Ես 332 West Lomita շենքի բնակիչ եմ։
I'm a resident of 332 West Lomita.
Ինչպես գիտեք, մեր շենքի բնակիչներին նոր տանտերը հանում է շենքից։
As you know, the new landlord of our building is evicting the residents.
Ես իմ թղթերը ներկայացրեցի emergency voucher ստանալու համար։
I've presented my paperwork to receive an emergency voucher.
Բայց ինձ մերժեցին։
But they denied me.
Որովհետև ասացին դու ստատուս չունես։
Because they said you do not have status.
Ես 14 թվականից ունեմ approve ընտանիքի միացումով, նման case-ով։
Since 2014, I have an approval of
ընտանիքի միացումով։
of family joining, basically in regards to, I'm here joined with my family as an approval.
Եվ հիմա սպասում եմ իմ հերթին, 3 նամակ եմ ստացել, ես բերել եմ այդ նամակը, այդ ապրովի թուղթը, եւ անցյալ անգամ ես այս թղթերը չէի ներկայացրել ստանալու համար վաուչերը։
So last time I did not present this paperwork and
Բան ապրովի թուղթը, immigration-ի նամակը չէի ներկայացրել։
and then last time I did not present my immigration paperwork.
Հիմա բերել եմ եւ ձեզ խնդրում եմ, որպեսզի ինձ թույլ տաք նորից իմ թղթերը ներկայացնելու emergency voucher ստանալու համար եւ խնդրում եմ չմերժեք։
And this time around I've come to present my paperwork again to apply for an emergency voucher and I request that you do not deny me this time.
Որովհետեւ ես չեմ կարող դուրս գալ,
Because I cannot leave.
որովհետեւ ես disability եմ եւ ստանում եմ օգնություն պետությունից։
Because I have a disability and I receive assistance from the government.
Եվ նման գումարով ինձ ոչ ոք բնակարան չի տա։
And no one would rent me a unit with a similar price.
Հույսով եմ ինձ չեք մերժի եւ կառաջնորդեք ինձ ես թղթերս նորից ներկայացնելու, վերանայելու եւ emergency voucher ստանալու համար։
Again, I hope you do not deny my request. You accept my paperwork, review it, and look over it, and seek. I am here to seek approval.
Շատ շնորհակալ եմ։
Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, this is in,
They will,
Նստեմ, թե
Mayor, members,
ստացեմ։
City Council, they will have to connect with our housing staff and.
yeah.
We will gather the information. If she would like to resubmit an application, we can look at it there.
Okay.
Կարող եք նորից հանձնել։
Թղթերը նորից հանձնել։
Կարող եք նորից հանձնել։
Հա, շատ շնորհակալ եմ։
Okay. Do we have a caller or no?
We don't have any
We don't.
callers.
Okay,
Well,
so I'll take
Mayor,
a motion.
I'd like to know,
Oh, I'm
wait,
sorry.
I'd like to move that the council hereby approves the city attorney appointment of Gregory Albanetti as deputy city attorney for the city of Glendale. The motion constitutes the written statement of recognized attainment required by Article 24, Section 5, subsection 2 of the charter.
Okay. We need a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Council members Asadurian,
Yes.
Divine, Kasakian,
Yes,
Najarian, Mayor Brotman.
Yes.
I move to adjourn.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we are adjourned at 9:19 PM. Thank you.